And welcome into, there we go. That's some technical difficulties. We've got it all figured out. Welcome into the Monday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
That was actually appropriate right after the top 10.
The top 10's been struggling. I'm a big
Monday morning top 10.
Big top 10 enthusiast on SportsCenter. It's been struggling as of late. We need a little bit more options.
The basic diving catch in right
baseball.
Field. I mean,
that happens every night in Major League Baseball. It's ridiculous.
They do too much baseball.
Yeah.
No offense to baseball.
We love baseball here.
Sure, but I feel like some of the soccer plays are pretty I'd like to see more, I think.
I would too.
We got the Olympics now. A lot of possibilities.
There are.
We don't need 6 baseball diving catches.
No matter of fact, as you say that, there was only one play from the Olympics on the top 10. So the best athletes in the world have gathered together, and only one play made the top 10. I find that hard to believe, Joe Rexrode.
Is that because the people who put it together for ESPN don't have the Peacock network?
maybe so.
Premium channel?
Maybe so. That's what it is. They're too busy watching MLB Network all weekend long.
Well, the funny thing is they actually have a lot of like baseball plays from like grainy footage from
minor leagues
all over the place.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I feel like they can do better.
Speaking of the Olympics. Olympic play underway over in Tokyo, and the USA men's basketball team off to a roaring start in Tokyo. They lose yesterday to France, 83-76, losing in the Olympics for the first time since 2004 in the Athens Games over in the Olympics. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago with the exhibition games, and they lost to Nigeria, they lost to Australia. I mean, they weren't playing well at all, but you thought to yourself, okay, well, just get it out of the way now, get over to Tokyo, and then it'll be USA basketball as we normally see it, and they'll just keep winning, and they'll win gold medal, and nobody will ever think twice about it. I'm starting to think that Michelle's called shot of them maybe being out in the quarterfinals may be right. They don't look very good, and I don't know how, because they have a ton of talent. I mean, you've got Damian Lillard, you've got Kevin Durant, you've got Bam Adebayo. You've got all these really, really good players. They don't look very good over there right now in Tokyo. And this is now 3 of 4 games that they've lost when you factor in exhibition and then the first game of Olympic play as well. This is not looking all that good for USA basketball right now.
No, and Popovich, Greg Popovich, of course, was an assistant last time it went badly when they kind of revamped everything. And Krzyzewski, say what you want about Mike Krzyzewski. I think he definitely benefited from Kobe and LeBron both wanting to play. I mean, that was probably the biggest thing that Krzyzewski had going for him. But they had a clear, plan, and he was good at putting rosters together. Like the Kevin Love, JaVale McGee thing that we've seen here, while Trae Young's like, man, I really love to. I just feel like one thing this team could use is another playmaker, shooter, because you mentioned the top 2 guys. If they don't play better, then I agree that this team's not going to win gold. I still would predict this team will win gold, but Lillard and Durant, those guys have got to be like the 2 stars like Kobe and LeBron were. They're not that level, or at least Lillard isn't, but like they've got to be great, but they just look stagnant, and it's not that surprising to see a team like this be disjointed a little bit.
Sure.
But then, in a lot of cases, it's just like, okay, someone just take over now, and that's not happening. I mean, Rudy Gobert, Fournier, they've got good players. The rest of the world is catching up. It's a great thing. Basketball worldwide has come a long, long way.
Yes.
So that's great, but this is a bad performance so far.
Right. I mean, look, basketball is catching up. I don't think there's any question about that. The rosters are still not comparable. I mean, this should not be a problem for USA basketball. And so far it is. And this is a problem that's been going on for a few weeks now. They've lost 3 out of 4 games. And to your point, I mean, there are obviously some top-level guys not playing for USA. I mean, no LeBron. Steph Curry's not there. So it's not like you've got your A team out there. But this, I think disjointed is a good way to describe it. I watched it a little bit when I woke up yesterday morning, and it was ugly. I mean, they just had some possessions where they looked like they had never played basketball together before, and that's because a lot of them have never really played basketball together before. So I understand there's a process that goes into that, and they've really only got two big guys too, and that's Adebayo and Draymond, and neither one of those are huge big guys either. So that's a problem too, but they just look disjointed right now. So a tough start to USA basketball play over in Tokyo in the Olympics. Katie Ledecky goes down, comes in second place yesterday, the silver medal. I never thought I'd see Katie Ledecky come in second place in anything. She's amazing, and it was amazing again yesterday. Had the third fastest time of all time, and ended up coming in second place in swimming yesterday with Katie Ledecky.
Yeah, overall swimming's been really surprisingly good. It's been
pretty good,
fantastic. Actually, also, I really like Michael Phelps as an analyst too. By the way, but yeah. Katie Ledecky, just used to her dominating every event. It can't last forever. Still awfully good. And then gymnastics, not a great. The U.S. women finished second for the first time since the Worlds in 10. So a little bit of a rough start there. But I don't know. Have you been have you guys been watching more, the same, less, into it, more, the same, less?
I would say less for me.
I see a lot of people saying that.
Yeah.
Less, but guys, I watched table tennis yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So intense. But you can't find a lot of the stuff. I can't find a lot of it on my TV.
Yeah.
So I've been streaming, but it's just not the same.
Yeah, it's all over the place. CNBC. I mean, it's like hockey kind of, I guess, but it's like CNBC, USA, NBC, NBC Sports, and then you got some of the stuff on the Peacock thing. So, yeah, it's I think between that and just it just doesn't feel the same to me.
It doesn't.
Like with the fact that, again, it's just like this is like a regression with no fans watching any of the sports,
Well, but water polo's on the TV in the studio right now. This is what I've really been waiting for. Water polo, what an amazing sport.
That's an intense,
along with your Australian
sport.
football team.
Yeah, Australian rules football and water polo. Those are the sports that get my attention.
Water polo is an intense, physical sport. Table tennis, though, that's those people. They're incredible. Like, how do you even get to the point where you can do that?
I don't know. Like, I thought I was, semi decent table tennis player. Not really. Not when I watch these people play. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
I do like sport. I love that we've got 3-on-3 hoops. I feel I feel as close to being an Olympic athlete as ever. Just watching the driveway hoops going on.
How much credit do we give the Gus Macker tournament for this? I saw you tweet about it over the weekend. It's now a thing.
Well, so that story was written by Dan Woike, works for the LA Times, from Michigan State.
Right.
And I'm very disappointed in him, actually, that he didn't. He tweeted at me. He's like, I considered calling the founder of Gus Macker. I'm like, yeah, dude, you should have. You're from Michigan. Like, this is like, this is our thing, man. But, yeah, Gus Macker gets a little love. Have you ever heard of Gus Macker, Michelle?
Can't say I have, guys.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's a Midwestern, but, yeah.
It's just 3-on-3 basketball tournament.
It's 3-on-3, but it was like in the heyday in Belding, Michigan, it would be like 20,000 people in this tiny town playing 3-on-3 hoops. Pretty sweet. Not sweet parking, but it was fun.
Yeah, I bet not on that run. And then Nashville SC, they just keep rolling right along. And by the way, congratulations to Michelle for the pick to click, Randall Leal.
I saw that on Twitter. I was like, heck yes. This is my first win.
Nice.
Yeah, you have one before myself and Porth, so that's good. Michelle has been part of NSC pick to click twice and already is 1 for 2.
Wow, 50% that's very strong in that sport. So no one had Sapong.
No.
Yeah. That place is rocking.
Yeah. Over 23,000 there Saturday night against FC Cincinnati. Which I watched a lot of that game. Not a good night for FC Cincinnati. They didn't have the ball very much. Nashville SC basically just kicked their butt from start to finish in that game. They could have had a couple more. It could have been 5 or 6-0.
Jayon Brown out riling up the fans, and Yeah. Second place now in the Eastern Conference.
Just keep collecting those points. It's a fun time to be a soccer fan. Got World Cup qualifiers coming to town on September the 5th. Nashville SC rolling right now. It's a good time to be a soccer fan here in Middle Tennessee. Also a good time to be a football fan as well. Titans training camp beginning this week as well. Joe Rexrode, you'll be leaving us a little bit later in the show to fulfill your media obligations today as well.
That's right.
Titans training camp.
So to even begin to cover this, you got to be vaccinated, and you still have to be tested. So I think it's every 2 weeks. So drive through testing this morning for everybody who's going to cover Titans camp. So we'll see if it's the big Q-tip.
I hope not, for your sake.
Because I've had like testing from my car, but it wasn't like crazy.
Right. I had one from the doctor's office one time. It was a pretty large Q-tip.
Yeah.
That was not pleasant. But I'm thinking the car, big normal sized would be my guess. I don't know.
Why is that?
I don't know. That's a question I'm not qualified to answer.
I should be like more schooled on all this stuff by now. But.
Probably because you're driving, right?
Could be. Do you even hit the brakes as you just keep going?
I was going to say, I think I stopped the car. I hope. Yeah, maybe it is. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Just roll through.
Just slow down to 20, get out. Yeah.
We'll have plenty to talk about with Titans training camp coming up a little bit later today in the 7 o'clock hour. Adam Vingan joining us in the 8 o'clock hour as well. And then our man Corey Curtis at 9 o'clock to look ahead to Titans training camp as well. We are off and running here today, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch, and taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. When we come back, Joe Rexrode had a called shot over the weekend for Call Your Shot Friday, and looking like that's going to be a pretty immediate no on the called shot for Joe Rexrode. We'll get to that and what that is coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And Joe, as we do every Friday, we have a Call Your Shot Friday where we make our bold predictions in the world of sports. And one of your bold predictions this past Friday, there's a lot of noise around Texas and Oklahoma potentially joining the SEC, but your bold prediction on Friday was it's not going to happen. Texas A&M is going to find a way to get a couple other schools in there, and they're going to shoot this thing down. Texas and Oklahoma are not going to be joining the SEC. It's all going to be a lot of talk, but at the end of the day, it's not going to end up happening. And about an hour after the show, it looked like that was pretty unlikely at that point. Now, I will say, that's why we do Call Your Shot Friday. You're taking a step of faith. You're leaping out there. But it doesn't look like this one's going to come true. It looks like Texas and Oklahoma are going to be joining the SEC.
Yeah, like I said at the time, I didn't really believe it, but it's like, hey, let's call some shots. I think that was that my only called shot, just because that's a heck of a called shot. But
it may have been.
Yeah, it's happening. I mean, good for you, Texas A&M. You've given this a try, and of course, there's been so much posturing since then. You got some legislators.
Oh yeah,
talking about trying to stop this, which never works. You've got Texas A&M with the sort of veiled threats, a little bit of, well, maybe we'll leave the SEC. And, of course, then they also put out a statement. At some point, someone there was like, hey, guys, shut up.
Yeah.
And they put out a statement that was like, well, we look forward to our continued, SEC relationship. I mean, they've got to feel – they've got to feel absolutely stabbed in the back. Bob Bowlesby from the Big 12, my goodness, that guy, was he taken to school here? But the bottom line is no one's getting out of this. No one's, and that's why, no one's going to vote against it either. Even though I'm struggling to find people excited about this. I just, and as time goes on, it's just, more and more, I just really have a problem with it. It doesn't really help to me. It doesn't help the sport. It doesn't serve fans. And it just a continued, realignment 10 years ago was same thing. Some of it made no sense from a fan perspective. Oh, let's make it so you can't go drive to the games against the teams that you've grown up, wanting to beat. Let's make it so these rivalries that are such great tradition now don't exist. Although I guess what you'll hear when this becomes official is people hailing Texas and Texas A&M can play again, right? This particular one at least, brings some tradition back, but that's not what it's about. And it's just I haven't found many people who do anything about this other than say, yeah, kind of shake, yeah. You may as well – some people are going to be excited about some of the new games that you have. But, again, like Tennessee, Florida, for as lopsided as that's been now for a while, that's not going to be an annual thing anymore.
Yep. I know. And I agree. That's what I said at the start. I'm not really excited about this. Like, to me, this is going to totally change the landscape of college football. And we're going to go to those super conferences that we've talked so much about here on the show. The other part that was just amazing to watch over the weekend, and you brought this up as this was going to happen at some point, the awkwardness between Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12 is now fully in effect. And Pete Thamel put this out last night. It says, quote, a source with knowledge of the OU and Texas call with the Big 12 Executive Committee tonight said that the schools declined to answer any questions about when they began engaging with the SEC. The general tone was, we're here to listen. So getting on call, we're not talking about any of that stuff. We're just on this call because we need to be on this call. We're not here to answer any questions.
So last week the Zoom links didn't work.
Yeah.
And then last night they're like, I can't figure out how to unmute. Sorry. Just get me in the chat.
Tham also said another source told Yahoo that the Big 12 Executive Committee's message to Oklahoma and Texas was clear, quote, don't play us. If you're willing to come with ideas or elements you need, do it genuinely. If this is done, let us know. And kind of feels like it's done between Texas, Oklahoma, and the Big 12.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting too. Just how the exit happens, because it could take a while, But I suspect. I mean, I think Texas and Oklahoma. I think right now they'd both have to pay like $76 million.
Yep.
It's interesting because the Big 12 schools obviously have a lot of value in playing them still, right? And in having, although it's about the next TV deal for them. Although I don't think they'll exist, but I think that what makes the most sense for everybody is for this to happen as quickly as possible, and for Texas and Oklahoma to pay up big and quickly recoup that by being in the SEC. And then, of course, you have the question of who's poaching who. That was a big thing. We had some good stuff this weekend we're going to have Nicole Auerbach later on this week, and some other people too, just about the whole, AAC maybe being the conference that actually absorbs Big 12 schools, not the other way around. I think the Big 12 might just not be existing here. What? Then again, thought so 10 years ago, and they tacked another decade on to their existence.
So it seems like you've gotten less and less excited about this over the weekend. What is kind of happened over the weekend? What's transpired that's made you less and less excited about Oklahoma and Texas, probably at this point going to the SEC?
Well, I was never excited. I mean, I was not excited about it. It's a huge story, but yeah, maybe more and more disenchanted and worried. I guess maybe that's it. More and more worried about. It's at what point do all these things really hurt the sport? I think the sport has been hurt. I mean, I think that the 14 playoff has had really, I think, unintended consequences, some of which don't have anything to do with the existence of the playoff. It's just the way the sport is right now. It's the lack of, variety. And the fact that for whatever reason, when you go from 2 to 4, it's like all of a sudden everyone feels like either you're in the playoff or you're totally irrelevant. I mean, there's already been a bunch of bowl games that frankly aren't relevant, right? Forever. We still watch them. I still want to watch these bowl games, but just the focus on getting the playoff has sort of changed the conversation around the sport. Conference championships, I think, have been majorly devalued. And I look at this now. If you're going to have these massive conglomerates, it is kind of like, it's like NFL Light. And again, not really making a lot of sense, not valuing tradition, and not valuing what fans want. Fans, I don't know any NFL fans that were begging for a 17th game either. I know some were just like, hey, man, more football is more football, and that's fine. But for the most part, fans like the 16-game, model that's been there since the 70s, and whatever. You'll pay, right? That's always the message.
Sure.
I just worry about, like, down the road, what does this mean for college football? I don't know that it's necessarily good, but it's a whole bunch of money.
There's that.
That's the answer is everybody in the SEC, and that's what every fan base in the SEC will eventually convince themselves as well. We're going to have way more money than but what does that really do for the college football fan?
I got someone on Twitter that says the arrogance of Texas fits in with the arrogance of the SEC. So not a lot of love for Texas or the SEC in that tweet.
Well, Texas is, this is, I would say, the biggest concern / deterrent / negative in terms of beyond what we're talking about here, the fans. Like, I think from people in the SEC is this going to be bad,
right,
working with Texas? Because they've been bad. That's going to be really interesting. You can say the arrogance of the SEC, that's fine. The SEC has had good working relationships. I think that some of that is Mike Sly was a very good commissioner, and Greg Sankey is too.
Yep.
So is Texas going to come in and spoil everything with their Texasness? I don't know. But Texas, you're not UT, sorry.
That's right.
You got to think of something else.
That's right.
TU, you call yourself TU?
That'll really get them fired up down there.
Yeah.
Tennessee was a school before Texas was a state. Just want to throw that out there.
It's true.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Nate texting in, Oklahoma and Texas were on that Big 12 call so they wouldn't get fined, a.k.a. Marshawn Lynch.
There you go. Exactly.
A lot of Marshawn Lynch love the last week or so.
There has been a lot of Marshawn, yeah, in various forms. Well, someone brought him up yesterday too because I tweeted out we got NFL 100 at the Athletic, and we had an Earl Campbell story, which is incredible if you read it. Like, everybody's seen that angry run, right?
Oh, yeah.
With the Rams guy. They called him Grauman's Chinese Theater because he had footprints all over him. I was like, that's amazing. Like, his teammates called him that after Earl Campbell annihilated him. But then someone actually said, I want to see Marshawn Lynch and Earl Campbell, like, head to head. Because Marshawn Lynch also has claim to a run or two that could be the best angry runs of all time. A lot of Marshawn Lynch lately.
A lot of Marshawn Lynch. Getting a lot of love here on the program, here nationally. Marshawn Lynch. Look, I'll be honest, the more I can see Marshawn Lynch, the more I hear from Marshawn Lynch, I'm cool with it. Even going back to his days in college where he took over the golf cart or whatever that was, just driving around the field at Cal. Love me some Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be a common sight at Kraken games.
I hope so. And his boy, Callie Yarncroke, as well.
Boy, Callie.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Texas and Oklahoma and relate it to the SEC. Should the SEC be ripped for this? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well, discussing Texas and Oklahoma potentially joining the SEC, and taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Brian in Portland texting in, there's a lot of people trying to blame Commissioner Sankey. I just don't see why the blame should be placed on him. His job is to make money for the SEC, to find a way to bring in a whole lot of money. He saw an opportunity and jumped on it. That's his job. I'm a Tennessee fan. I'm not really for or against this. Those are just my thoughts on this. And Brian brings up a good point on the text line. A lot of people critical of the SEC and Greg Sankey over the weekend. Of course, a lot of people think, okay, they think the way Brian thinks as well. This is Greg Sankey's job to make the SEC as much money as possible. Where do you come down on this? Should Greg Sankey and the SEC be celebrated for this move? Should they be criticized for this move, potentially to bring in Texas and Oklahoma? What are your thoughts on the SEC's role in this and how they should be perceived in the aftermath of it if Texas and Oklahoma are officially made a part of the SEC?
Yeah, I'm glad Brian brought that up. We were going to talk about that anyway. It's a really good question and conversation, because I basically agree with Brian. I mean, what is Greg Sankey supposed to do? And if it went the way all reporting indicates it does, he was approached. And I mean, if you're him and you know that you have to look at the whole picture. If you're him and you know, and the whole picture goes back to some point, right? It goes back, I believe, to before this push for the 12-team playoff, which at the time made sense from the current SEC perspective, because as Greg Sankey said publicly at the time, so there's a lot of push here to get different people opportunities. Well, I want my league to have more opportunities. Right. So the way to do that is to go bigger. But then you think about that push in the context of Oklahoma and Texas having reached out already. How are you going to get Oklahoma and Texas, if you have something this big?
Right.
Because otherwise, I mean, you're just – I mean, if you even go to 6 or 8 and it's just like auto bids, then it's like, you just made it tougher on everybody. So, first of all, as far as shrewdness, Greg Sankey gets a 10 out of 10. I mean, diabolical almost. So, do you blame him? Here's my thing. If you want to defend him, and again, I mostly do, someone else is going to take them anyway, right? So if the TV deals were so paling in comparison to the Big 12, the writing's on the wall. It just doesn't move the needle for TV people like the SEC and Big Ten. And so they were looking down the road, big picture, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, there's going to be a big gap in money between us and those two leagues. So we gotta leave. Okay. Well, if you're Greg Sankey, you can't let them go to the Big Ten, right?
I would think not.
But the bigger picture beyond that, and maybe it's asking too much of Greg Sankey, but I thought Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News had a good column about this last week. It's like, there's a void of leadership in this sport, and someone should look at this and say, okay, we're going to have more money. There's no doubt. And that's good, but is the sport going to be hurt? Is the interest, like big picture, long term, are we carving into the sport? And you know what? Some people might say, no, people still care. People are going to still be passionate and tribal about their school and who they've been growing up. And you know what? They'll adjust to Tennessee, Florida don't play each other every year anymore. Oklahoma, Nebraska don't play each other ever anymore. Whatever the case may be, Texas A&M stopped playing for a decade. Fans will adjust and they'll still have that passion. That's the answer back. I have my doubts a little bit, and I think that's where a Greg Sankey. I don't know that I can seriously ask the guy to not do his job and make the most money and win.
Right.
But it does bring up a void of leadership, I think.
Allen on Twitter says they need to rename it to the South Central Conference. No longer the SEC. Just the South Central Conference.
Okay. The South. It could be the original, the Southern. Wasn't it the Southern Conference? Yeah. Way back in the day, right? Yeah. So, well, that was my original question when all this started to come out. Like, how far does the SEC go? Like, how far is Southeast now? we're at this point, you're going to make it into Oklahoma and Texas. How far are you going to the West for the SEC? I mean, the Pacific. The Pacific 8 to the Pacific 10, now the Pacific 12. I mean, they have Colorado. Yeah. There's a lot of nonsensical, not to mention that, like,
it's like when the Sounds were in the Pacific Coast League. You're like, oh, really? Okay.
I mean, Nebraska and Rutgers are in the same conference, for crying out loud.
They are.
I mean, it's silly. Again, it's silly it's television. I mean, look at this. And it's interesting, too, because, like, the cable thing of a decade ago and before that, but I mean, that really brought the realignment, right? And you almost thought, well, so with cable retracting, does that reduce the influence of television? No, it does not. And it just comes down to, like, what are our payouts going to be? Well, we're going to get to 60, 70 million a year. So now Vanderbilt can complain. Everybody's complaining about $45 million check. Well, now it'll be a $60, $65 million check that better be going to athletics, right? And that's great. But what does it do for the fan experience?
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Johnny in White House texting in. It'll be weird seeing two UTs at the bottom of the standings.
Oh,
ouch.
Oh, man.
Ouch. Jeez.
Who is Johnny a fan of is what I'd like to know. Is that a Vanderbilt fan taking a shot?
Maybe so.
Yeah. Not similar. I mean, Tennessee's struggles have been much more severe, but it's been a while now for Texas with a whole bunch of big-time recruits and money and coaches, and I don't know, man.
Do you think they regret the Mac Brown decision? Mac Brown's doing pretty well in North Carolina right now. I mean, it's kind of similar.
Oh, yeah.
Fulmer, Mac Brown. I think Fulmer was a little bit different.
Yeah, Fulmer, right? I mean, that's realistically.
Yeah.
At that point, it had been a pretty several
years. I was in the building when Fulmer lost to Wyoming. That was not fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
But, Mac Brown for sure. What about Rick Barnes?
Maybe.
I think they're going to be.
So.
I think they're going to be in good shape now. But Rick Barnes, pretty good. They had their basketball program kind of like Tennessee's. Well, I mean, Bruce Pearl did a lot of good things, but like their basketball program was totally dormant before Rick Barnes got there.
Johnny bringing the smoke on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Look, I mean, it's difficult for me to fault Greg Sankey in this. I mean, as Brian pointed out on the text line, his job is to make this conference money, and this is going to make them a lot of money. Now, I share the concerns that you've put out there, and I talked about that a little bit last week. Like, to me, if you're a Tennessee fan or a Vanderbilt fan, like, other than the money, which, again, the fan base and, like, the day-to-day Tennessee fan or the Vanderbilt fan, like, how much do they really care about that? I mean, maybe a little, but not a whole lot.
Right, you hope it's a means to an end.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But that's about the extent of it. Like, on the field, I don't think this is good for Tennessee or for Vanderbilt or anyone like that. I mean, this just makes your job more difficult in the SEC to get to the top. And as we know, it's already difficult enough in this conference, and you've still got Alabama there, and there are a lot of obstacles in your way right now if you're a Tennessee fan to getting back to the top. You bring in Oklahoma and Texas, and that just got that much harder. So, like, I don't – like, you throw out the idea, and I hadn't even thought about this, like the idea of Tennessee and Florida not playing every year. I don't like that. That bothers me as a Tennessee fan. I realize it's not going well for Tennessee against Florida, and sometimes things just change in college football. But there are traditions in the SEC that I really love and I think are a special part of college football, and a lot of those could go away at this point.
That game has a special feeling to it every single time it comes up, even if and in a lot of cases it's been Tennessee, but even if both teams are kind of down or whatever, there's something about that game. The fan base is everything that I love. And, yeah, there's no way. They're not going to be in the same pod with Florida. I mean, they're going to be whatever if they do pods. But, like, that game is an obvious one that's going to have to be sacrificed as an annual thing. Unless they because I assume that the in-state rivalries are going to be, in whatever system they do, are going to be preserved. They're not going to – I mean, really, you can't preserve much else other than if you do this pod thing, and it's not going to be Tennessee and Florida the same one. So and there's other ones too. I mean, Auburn, Georgia is a game that
it's the oldest rivalry in the SEC,
and that's not going to be every year.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it will be. So yeah, it's just stuff like that. I mean, again, how does that from a Sankey perspective? You weigh those two things. I mean, it's pretty easy. You have to win, and again, if Oklahoma and Texas were going to get out of there, then they are really two of the three brand programs that could be possibly obtained right now. So, I mean, ultimately, Sankey's doing his job. It is just I'm a little worried about where everything is going.
So speaking of that, if this happens and the SEC becomes a super conference, I guess the natural expectation out there is the Big 12, the ACC, the Pac-12 follow suit at that point. But does that make sense from a financial standpoint? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. The ultimate social experience is coming to Nashville. My Wine Society presents Blended Festival August 13th and 14th at First Horizon Park with live performances by Cascade, Lil Jon, Matt Stell, Blanco Brown, Bryce Vine, and more. Enjoy Blended's massive 100-foot wine tasting tent and indulge in culinary activations by Nashville's hottest chefs. There's also Blended's relaxing wellness lounge, VIP Village, and a whole lot more. Get Blended tickets on sale now at blendedfestival.com. Use promo code Cromwell at checkout for 10% off of your ticket. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Brandon from Spring Hill texting in earlier while we were talking about water polo. Water polo is my sport. I played it in high school and college, and now I referee it at the NCAA level. It truly is a very rough sport that you need a lot of endurance for.
Oh,
I don't think there's any question about that.
Unbelievably grueling if you really think about it. I love watching water polo. We've been watching it. It's a good sport.
Now fencing is coming on. I can't sit here and pretend that I would watch fencing for 4 years straight, but I do enjoy these Olympic events that come around once every 4 years.
How about Taekwondo?
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's another one. Fencing, another one that I've had to write about before. That
This person was stabbed. I don't know how you'd write about it.
Yeah, you Google all the terms. I'm
assuming stabbed is not the proper term.
No. I mean, it's close.
It's a sword
in the
fight.
neighborhood.
It's basically what it is.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Talking college football. Got a texture that says this move is another step toward killing college football. The playoffs have already consolidated power into a few universities, which is gradually killing the enthusiasm of fans of other universities. Growing the SEC will act to do the same thing with conferences. The greed is going to act to reduce revenues for all top-tier teams. It's a mirror of our society, the rich getting richer at the expense of all the rest.
I mean, that's pretty well stated. I've kind of said I'm a little worried, and I don't know that I buy that it's going to be that extreme, but I think you could look at it and say, what does this do? There's obviously an organic thing about college football over many, many years, and some of it was just there was just a common sense element to it, right? Play teams that are near you,
yes,
and you'll have rivalries, and charge people some money to come watch the games. I mean, again, I'm old enough that in my lifetime I remember. Do I remember, or at least I remember that it wasn't long ago that teams were allowed to be on TV one time a year, because of course we cannot let television become this bit this too powerful in the whole discussion.
Who would want that?
Yeah, one a year, and of course you think about now. I mean, it's just so dictated by broadcast and now streaming rights, and now, will it financially tumble down? I mean, this is where the stakeholders here are counting on, again, that passion to not wane, to be able to adjust. Nate on Twitter, an interesting one he brought up. What about Florida, Georgia going away? See, I think that's one that they will maintain.
They'll be in the same same pod.
If they do pods, I think every pod projection I've seen has Florida, Georgia together. I mean, I think that would be the one game. But you're basically going to be able to save one game for everyone, and that'll be that one for those two.
I did see one pod that had Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. What do you think about that one?
Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So you're getting rid of Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee, Florida.
Yeah. Look, that one's not going to happen. I just saw that projection over the weekend.
Yeah. Oh, there's going to be so many projected pods. Everyone, let's all do our pods.
Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, and whoever.
Texas.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, you may as well. You're going to have this massive conglomerate. You may as well let's have Texas and Arkansas. That used to be a great rivalry. Yeah. I mean, I do like Texas and Texas. I mean, believe me, I'm here for Texas and Texas A&M playing.
Me too.
I mean, if this is going to happen, fine. Let's see that again. Texas and Oklahoma has to keep happening. So there's some ways some of these pods will make sense, but again, you're losing some stuff. There's no doubt.
Well, and now the natural reaction and question, I think, is what happens next. Because, I mean, it looks like Texas-Oklahoma is going to happen in the SEC, and then the question becomes, how do these other conferences respond? And, I think the first conference that comes to mind is the Big Ten, and we've talked about the money in the Big Ten, the money in the SEC. It's very similar. With Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC, that money is going to tip in favor of the SEC. And it's always been with the Big Ten. That's going to change with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the mix in the SEC.
It's been very close.
It's very close. Like, it's not like the Big Ten's blowing them out of the water or anything, but it's going to tip into favor of the SEC. So the question is, if you're the Big Ten, like, how do you respond? We threw out the idea the other day of Notre Dame and maybe seeing if now's the time that makes sense for them to join a conference. The Big Ten would be a natural fit there. But honestly, Joe, and I was thinking about this over the weekend, and I'm glad you brought this up on our group text and our grid, because I was thinking about, like, if it's not Notre Dame, if you're the Big Ten, who's it going to be? Like, who are you going out and getting that really makes that big of a difference in your bottom line, money-wise?
Right. I mean, you bring in people, now you are splitting up 16 ways instead of 14 ways. So, again, this is different from a decade ago when I remember when like Rutgers came in, all these Big Ten fans are like, well, they should get like half cut at most. But it's like, no, because Rutgers brings in New York cable. And, of course, you still have a transitional period until you get the full share. But why are you just auto going to 16? Why does this have to be 4 16s? I mean, some people say, well, because then they're just going to break away and they're only going to play each other. Now, you want to talk about killing college football?
Yeah.
In a lot of parts of this country. I mean, killing it. There you go. So that's what it'll do. Everybody can have the satisfaction of, like the NCAA is no longer involved or whatever. But if you were to go straight up NFL light and just take, or it could be fewer. I mean, it could be one league, and there was someone in our group text who threw out, I don't know, someone for Barstool was like, I've heard Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, and Florida State, right? Those are the 4. We're going to make it a 20-teamer. Well,
yeah.
I don't think that particular reporter is going to be right. If he's the only one right now, I'm very skeptical of that. I wouldn't be skeptical of a conversation, a phone call, though. Would Michigan, Ohio State look at it and say, well, that's the only place where they're going to get 70 million checks a year? Big Ten, maybe. I don't think so. I mean, you think about this, the killing of the sport that would usher in, to me. At least the changing to absolutely just NFL light. And, hey, every week, I've heard this from some fans on the positive side, every week, I could see a great game, and there's weeks now where I see bad ones. And I agree. Like, that's the thing that could be better, is that you have more good games, but you're talking about a lot of the sport, a lot of the country just sort of like you're not – you fade away. But the Big Ten, if this is a thing where the SEC staying at 16 and we're not going to that whole thing, why is the Big Ten compelled to add anyone?
Well, that's the thing, because it's not like, and let's throw the Pac-12 in there too. Like, who is the Pac-12 going to bring in that's anywhere close to the level of Texas and Oklahoma? Just the powerhouses that they are. Like, those programs just don't exist,
and they're
that are out there right now.
And they're splitting up way less money.
Exactly.
So who are you bringing up to make you more attractive to the TV people, to raise your rates, to sweeten your deal, so that it makes sense to split it up more ways? And that's the thing. There's a lot of like 4/16s, and a lot of people have talked about that for a long time, going back to but if one of them is this much more powerful than any of the other ones, including the Big Ten now, I think Notre Dame is the one exception. If the Big Ten could add Notre Dame, then it would be worth
somebody else.
Kansas.
Yeah.
And Kansas certainly great for basketball. A lot of people are talking about Kansas from the basketball perspective. But again, from the financial perspective, the NCAA tournament is what makes money in basketball. So, like the school by school, It's just not that. It's not going to be that big of a deal to add a good basketball school. It's about adding football power. So if you get Notre Dame, you're Big Ten. Add someone else, get it 16. And Notre Dame, by the way, has a contract in place with the ACC, which would be very expensive for them to join any other league. And right now, the indications, even from Notre Dame, are they'd probably still just stay independent. But if not, I just don't see why the Big Ten would react to this. And it's not like this has to go to 4/16s. I mean, college football's never made complete sense with the leagues and the numbers of teams and so. I think
the Big Ten at the moment's got 14 teams in there.
Yeah, the Big Ten has 14. The Big
12
has 10,
yeah.
soon to be 8.
Yeah,
and soon to be teams that join the AAC. What would the AAC be with this? You know, I mean, it would be. I mean, they. You know, that's a league that's kind of excited right now.
Yeah.
You know, if you can go in and get some of these Big 12 leftovers, you could strengthen your league quite a bit and be, I mean, certainly the new number 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that matters to you. But it's more money. I mean, right now, those payouts for those teams are like $7 million.
Right.
You know, something in that range. So get it to 15. It's still, you think about that versus 70. Over time, there's a big difference.
There's a pretty massive difference on that front, no question about it. We'll continue to take your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. When we come back, training camp week is finally here for the Tennessee Titans. We look ahead to some position battles. What excites us the most about this Titans team heading into camp? We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Have the Rex Rant coming up later this hour at 7:45. So looking forward to that coming up with Joe Rexrode, which you can hear every week at Monday at 7:45 here on the show. Adam Vingan dropping by at 8 o'clock. The NHL Draft taking place over the weekend. NHL free agency begins on Wednesday. How active will the Predators be? We'll get into that with Adam coming up in the 8 o'clock hour here on the show. And then Corey Curtis from News 2 at 9 o'clock for our weekly visit with him. So looking forward, a lot coming your way here on Robby and Rexrode for the remainder of the show. And Titans training camp about to get underway this week. Players reporting tomorrow for the start of training camp. And then it's football time in Tennessee after that. So looking forward to that coming up with the Tennessee Titans. And Joe Rexrode will be going out later today to receive his testing to start going into Titans training camp. And I know that's certainly not going to be the most exciting thing for you heading into this camp. But other than that, as training camp is about to get underway here for the Tennessee Titans, obviously a lot of buzz around this team, a lot of hype around this team as well. Now the training camp is here. What excites you the most, Joe Rexrode, about this team, about training camp, as we are officially now 1 day away from players reporting for camp?
Well, I think certainly, and this is probably the case a lot of times, it's seeing some of the new players, newcomers, rookies, free agent signings, seeing them as a full group together, on defense, seeing, Autry and Simmons up front, and we'll see on Farley and Dupree, but those two guys are obviously huge adds. Both of them, by the way, are not going to be active right away, which is not a big surprise. Huge question there about, when. They're, basically past physical and you're active. NFI is non-football injury is Farley. And, of course, non-football injury, you're on that if your injury didn't happen in an NFL game or practice, which, of course, his didn't because he's new to the NFL. And then Dupree's on the PUP list. But Dupree's putting stuff out there.
Which is physically unable to perform.
Yes. The pup. Thank you. He put out some stuff that looks like he's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
Yeah. Looks like Bud Dupree's doing all right.
But, but still, you're talking December, right? Early December?
Yep.
So how much do you want to push that? How much will he be out there? I'm excited to see Julio Jones and Janoris Jenkins go against each other. A.J. Brown and Janoris Jenkins go against each other, and some Christian Fulton, and see how does he look? How does Darrington Evans look? I mean, there's a lot of really interesting storylines for sure. At outside linebacker, the Titans signed John Simon, which is interesting. I don't hate that.
No.
Veteran, been in the league a long time. I could see him. I could see him certainly be in the top 3 early, with Dupree still not out there for sure. And then even when the season starts, maybe giving them like a reliable, fourth guy, 3/4, depending on how Rashad Weaver progresses. So I'm just in general, once you get to see these guys actually go ones versus ones, some of the obvious battles that you can see even in one-on-one drills are the corners versus receivers, but even just seeing how Simmons and Autry look together as a tandem. And who else on that D-line? I did a 53, which we'll talk about at some point, but, you have to do about 17 of them before the camp ends. But,
just keep a running tally of your 53-man rosters.
Yeah. But D-line is interesting because they're going to have, in most cases, 2 guys, really, on the field. But Laurel Murchison, what does he look like in year 2? You got Tier Tart. Naquan Jones is an undrafted guy I think could get in there. But it's interesting. They've got some questions and some young guys who have to prove themselves there. You got to have depth. And that position I look at and say, how is there depth there? Someone's going to get hurt everywhere.
Absolutely. And speaking of training camp, the Texans have reported the training camp. And Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network just coming out with the Texans are now willing to listen and have been for some time to trade offers for star quarterback Deshaun Watson. Multiple sources tell me and Ian Rappaport. But the price is high for a player of his caliber, and it should be. It would likely take at least 3 first-round picks and more. Pelissero also said when he reported to camp Sunday, Deshaun Watson was respectful, but his demeanor reiterated that he doesn't want to be in Houston. The question is, will a team step up with a type of massive offer that would compel the Texans to move him now? Watson also would have to waive his no-trade clause. So some news in the Titans division there. I guess that's the first time that we've heard that the Texans are actually willing to listen on trade offers, but I don't know. Like, do you expect any movement to happen on Deshaun Watson at this point with his legal situation being what it is, and there's really been no news on that front whatsoever in what seems like months at this point?
I don't know. I mean, I think if the Texans got an offer they were happy with, yeah, but I would say if I'm the team on the other side, I'm leaning in heavily on what you just said. We don't know what's going on. How much am I giving you for someone who may not play in 2021? You take a year out of his career. They aren't long careers in the first place. And then, just all the questions around Watson because of this scandal. 3 first-round picks.
That's a lot. And more. That's what 3 first-round picks and more. What's the and more?
Yeah, I don't know.
Jeez.
But 3 first-round picks alone, I don't know about that.
Now, I saw a lot of people, when he showed up to Texans camp, they were surprised that he was there.
Yeah, he showed up.
That doesn't mean that he wants to be the quarterback of the Houston Texans.
We talked about Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
Here to not get fined, that's what Deshaun Watson was yesterday. And that's, you would think that the NFL would weigh in here. But, on the flip side of the 3 first-round picks or whatever this massive price is, I mean, if you're a team, look, if you look at the whole situation, I feel confident that he's going to return to playing in this league. He's going to get through this based on all the information we have, and then he'll be a top 5 quarterback in the league again, probably for several years. So if you're a team on the other side of that, I mean, it's got to be appealing. It's interesting. Before all this stuff happened, I think it was going to be a feeding frenzy on trying to outbid each other for him, and now it's different. But you still have to look at the bottom line, which always happens in the NFL. I mean, come on. I mean, there's so many players in this league. I mean, Tyreek Hill, I actually thought might be out of the league, and
he's not.
No, he's not. So
Antonio Brown just won a Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, let's be realistic here about the NFL. So somebody is going to look at that and say, well, I could have a potentially all-time great quarterback for many years. What is that worth to me? That's what the Texans are counting on.
That's what the Texans are counting on. Now, to that point, I wonder, if you're him and no trade is facilitated throughout training camp, what do you do if you're Deshaun Watson? Are you going to suit up and play for Houston? Is he going to be allowed to play while this is going on? That's the part of this we don't know at this point. But if he's allowed to play, is he going to play for Houston if no trade's been facilitated at that point? It doesn't sound like it.
I would think
you're just going to sit there?
I would think so.
It's interesting. Very interesting stuff on Deshaun Watson. We'll continue to keep you updated. I'm sure that is a saga that will be ongoing for the next few weeks with Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. But Titans training camp underway tomorrow. I think one of the things I'm most excited to see is Anthony Ferkser and the tight end position. I mean, this is something I'm still not convinced is just going away. Maybe you get a couple weeks into camp, and if you're John Robinson and the Titans, you feel like you still need to add at the tight end position. I don't know how they're going to view that, but this is the first training camp that Anthony Ferkser is going to be the guy coming into training camp. Can he handle the blocking part of this to the degree in which he's going to be asked to block? Can he be a huge weapon for Tannehill in this offense going over the middle? I mean, a lot of people are going to spend a lot of time paying attention to Julio Jones and Antonio Brown, A.J. Brown this training camp, and deservedly so. I understand why, but I think it's going to be interesting to see Anthony Ferkser and how he responds to his new role. That's something to me that still is, when you start to talk about questions that the Titans have heading into training camp, tight end position as a whole, still a pretty huge question mark to me heading into this week.
Big time. I mean, it's Ferkser, it's Swaim, and it's some undrafted guys who are trying to make a roster, and a few of them may, but then that's the position I look at and say, I think there's a name that we don't know right now that may be there within a few weeks.
Yeah, could be, and doesn't necessarily, I think some people hear that and they say, okay, well, starter. It doesn't necessarily have to be a starter. At this point, I think I'd be surprised if Anthony Ferkser's not their number one tight end. Crazier things have happened. Trades can be made. People can be signed. But I at this point, would probably be surprised if Anthony Ferkser at least doesn't start the season as their number one guy. That doesn't mean you can't add to some pieces around that. No, it's not going to be Delanie Walker. I'm willing to put that out there.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. I'm going to take that step. Before we start getting texts about it, which we do every time we talk about the tight end position, it's not going to be Delanie Walker.
Will Delanie Walker get any kind of opportunity with anybody?
I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's going to.
I would guess no, too. Wouldn't be shocked if he did, but it's tough. I mean, again, it's been 4 years. It's been 4 years, really pre-injury since he was what we think of when we think of Delanie Walker.
But just, one more year, maybe all it takes to solidify that Hall of Fame bid.
Yes, that's right. Well, just as, a Super Bowl or just playing in a big market. If he can just latch on and be on the roster with the Steelers or Cowboys, then that's probably the ticket to the Hall of Fame per Jared.
Probably in at that point. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Titans. Take your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode has come out with a 53-man roster as well. We'll dissect that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Nashville SC fans, join ESPN 94.9 tonight from 7 to 8 p.m. for NSC Backstage featuring Nashville SC players and coaches. You can watch the show online via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and at thegamenashville.com. NSC Backstage brought to you by Camarena Tequila, the official tequila of Nashville SC. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, talking Titans training camp opening up this week for the Tennessee Titans. And some interesting position battles that will be on hand as well. Now, Joe, you've already mentioned one move that the Titans have made. John Simon coming in at outside linebacker. Tazar Skipper on the way out at outside linebacker as well. So one move the Titans have already made in advance of training camp. And you've come out with one of what I'm sure will be very many 53-man rosters that you do. How many 53-man rosters do you think you'll put together in training camp? Over under 4.5.
Oh, I mean, I hope it's under. I was joking, but I think, can I get away with 2?
I hope so, for your sake.
I mean, because they cut down from 90 to 85. Don't they go to 85, 80, and then they do the big cut?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to try to make it 2. I'm going to try to make it 1 more.
Well, and it's easier to do them this year because you actually have like preseason games to watch. It's not just training camp practice.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's like there's actual information.
Right.
Especially on the bottom of the roster. That's where we'll get the information because I bet you Mike Vrabel, he's big on not getting key guys injured. By the way, there's your favorite player of all time, Tom Brady, with his little They're actually ESPN is asking if that's real or fake.
Yes, the video of Tom Brady throwing the ball into the jug machines that was tweeted out yesterday. I think it's fake.
I mean, it is fake. I thought it was confirmed as fake.
I don't know that it's been confirmed as fake, but it's fake.
Yeah. Well, ESPN is of course, because it's Tom Brady.
It's Tom Brady.
They're making it. They're making it seem like it might be real. But anyway. I am looking forward. Maybe I'll have to do a new 53 after the practice week with the Bucs because whoever Tom Brady touches,
they're going to make team
immediately. Yeah, if they get within his presence, within 5 yards of him, the greatness will rub off on them, and someone will surprisingly make the roster because of that. No, I'm hoping for 2. I'm hoping this, but right before it cuts.
What was
and then there's a 53. Then when you get the actual one, which you could maybe do one and analyze that.
Yeah.
So I guess technically that'd be 3, but if I'm not on the under on that, it's gonna be a long August.
Very long August.
A lot of other things to do
for Joe Rexrode, no question about that. So as you were putting this initial 53-man roster together, pre-Titans training camp, with again the players reporting tomorrow for the first day of training camp, what was the most difficult part of this roster in your opinion to project? And it doesn't have to be, going through the list of every single specific guy, but the most difficult maybe position group or part of this roster to project in your opinion is what? What are some of the most intriguing position battles as the Titans now head into training camp?
I think offensive line is interesting and difficult. Receiver is probably the most difficult because I think So I excluded Cam Batson, and I just don't know that that's very smart to do. But it's a very interesting situation now, and I had on, the player who, of course, is now identified with me, Nick Westbrook-Akina.
I was going to ask
getting crap from people. But I think he's going to make the team, and I also think Racey McMath is going to make the team. I just really like what I've seen from him in the spring. He's a really intriguing player.
He's got a pretty good combination of size and speed.
Yeah, so during this camp, key for him is every kicking game rep he gets is that he is great. But that's also, Westbrook-Akina that's a big part of him making the team too. And, again, I know that I wrote he was going to be a 7-time Pro Bowler in the spring per some of my colleagues. But that's a really – Cam Batson is just – he is a pro's pro, and he's a heck of a story. And he's a little different kind of player too now in this receiver room that used to be Like it's like the Titans receivers and the Preds roster. They're just getting rid of all the small guys, you know?
Yeah.
But Cam Batson gives you a little bit different element. So that was a tough one. I mean, O-line is tough. I think it's pretty clear at a lot of positions, but tight end is interesting too. I had them keeping more tight ends because it's sort of like quantity versus quality. Like one of the guys I have making the team that I bet you a lot of people wouldn't right now is Jared Pinkney, former Vanderbilt tight end. And I may be way off on that. I mean, he's got to have a very good camp. He didn't help himself. I can't imagine just by not being there for the
OTAs.
Yeah, for the OTAs. Yep. But at the same time, I look at the scenario and I say, man, I feel like he could be the fifth tight end. And then, of course, as you said before, there may be. I mean, certainly we could see a different player at some point, and then that changes that whole scene. But like Briley Moore is a guy who I think is really intriguing to watch this camp. Offensive line, you know, you've got Sombrilo, who is starting out still hurt, which isn't great for him. You have Quessenberry still there, but you've brought in Kendall Lamb. So I had 9 offensive linemen on my 53, which is a big number.
It is. I'll be honest with you, I was looking at your list, and defensive line comes, and Naquan Jones made me double take. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, wait, Naquan Jones, not Daquan Jones.
Yes.
It really got me for a second.
From Daquan to Naquan.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to rip on me because he's a Michigan State.
No.
Okay.
No. It was just the name.
Yeah, Daquan to Naquan.
Hey.
And I don't, I mean, he's got an opportunity, but there's a lot of guys. That's a position that could go a lot of different ways at the bottom of the roster. I mean, I think Tart is a pretty solid guy to count in there. I think the only obvious absolutes that I would say would be that your big two and Murchison, and then there's a lot of guys battling after that. It could go a lot of different ways.
The most intriguing position battle to me, and I'm not kidding, who's going to kick? Who in the world is going to be the kicker for this team?
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a huge question coming in here. And Tucker McCann is there. Blake Haubill is there as well. I guess we all kind of keep waiting on what's it going to look like for Gostkowski. Like, is he going to be a part of things as the Titans approach training camp here? Like, I would assume if that's going to be the case, going to have to be coming in the next few days, right? You would think. Unless, I guess they could sign him before the first week of the season.
Well, how far into camp did they sign him last year?
Right.
It was
significantly into camp. But, also if you're them, hasn't he had enough time to make up his mind of whether or not he wants to play at this point? To me, that's what it would be. Like, what he's waiting on is, if you're the Titans, I think with the way he closed out the season, you're probably interested in him, at least to see what he looks like, would be my guess. Now, maybe they're not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that.
But I would guess that they still would be interested in him. And if they are, I mean, the holdup to me would be, does he still want to play? But, I mean, we're 5 days away from August. Like, you might need to have that figured out at this point.
Maybe they're not convinced with him, and there was enough inconsistency last year that it helps the idea, the decision about, you know what, got to find the next kicker. Got to find the next kicker who is going to be good enough to be on this roster long term. But the problem is, I just don't know if either of those two young guys, you don't get to see much. But when we get to see Tucker McCann kick, I don't think he's consistent enough. Blake Haubill, we'll see. I mean, I think if I had to guess between those two right now, I would guess Haubill based on what I haven't seen yet from McCann. But obviously they like McCann enough to – I mean, he's here competing again. Again, there's a lot we don't see. But what you do see is a time when he knows everybody sees it, and that's really – right? I mean, there's a lot of really good practice players in various things, and then now the pressure's on. What do you do? And so I think those moments are important. Haubill is going to have, I think, every opportunity. It's going to be a competition. I could see that going on for a bit of time, and then maybe the Titans saying, it's not good enough. Gostkowski or someone else. I mean, there's a few other veterans floating around out there. There always are. But I don't think that Gostkowski not deciding right now, yes, he wants to play, is necessarily an indication that it won't happen. I mean, he also may be like, you know what, guys? Yeah, I don't need to be out 93 degrees right now. I'll see you at about August 25th. How's that work for you?
Could be. Maybe that's something that happens. We'll have to keep an eye on the kicking as it progresses throughout training camp for the Titans. We'll continue to talk about the Titans and some position battles when we come back, taking your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What is the most intriguing position battle to you? What's the biggest question mark for the Titans heading into training camp? We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Blue Raider Blitz is rolling across the mid-state to a town near you, led by Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders football head coach Rick Stockstill. This community-wide event will be guaranteed fun for the whole family. Each of the stops will include food, ticket giveaways, and a chance to mix and mingle with MTSU coaching staffs and Lightning as well. For more information on where you can attend, head to goblueraiders.com/tour. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 1025 The Game, discussing the Tennessee Titans training camp opening up this week for the Tennessee Titans. And Joe Rexrode at theathletic.com has put together a Titans 53-man roster projection as training camp now set to open for the Titans coming up here tomorrow. And we've gone through a few of the position battles. One position battle very interesting to me as well that the Titans are probably hoping is not important whatsoever this year, but could ultimately end up being very important is backup quarterback. Who is going to be the backup quarterback with Ryan Tannehill? Deshaun Kaiser and Logan Woodside are going to be in battle in training camp. And it's interesting. Like Logan Woodside to me, and we've talked about this here on the show, Joe, he feels like a guy that every year, every position battle, every chance that comes up, everybody wants to replace Logan Woodside. It's like, all right, you got Logan Woodside in here. Who can you bring in that's better than Logan Woodside? Now, we've not seen Logan Woodside play in an actual game, so we don't really know exactly what's there. You've been around him at practice. You've seen him at practice, and you've talked about the improvement that he's displayed over the last couple of years. There's been some improvement, and it's been pretty good at times from Logan Woodside at practice. What do you think of this backup quarterback battle? Teron Davenport came on like 3 months ago and predicted that it was going to be Deshaun Kaiser, and he was going to be the guy that ends up getting the starting or the backup job to Ryan Tannehill. I think this is going to be really interesting. I think Kaiser has got more upside than Logan Woodside does, but Woodside knows the playbook. He's been in this system, and obviously he has done some things that this coaching staff really likes, and that's how he's been able to hang around to this point. I'm fascinated to see who ends up winning the backup quarterback position, and as I said, if you're the Titans, you're hoping it's not really all that important, but it could end up being very important for the Titans as to how the story of this year ultimately plays out.
Yeah, I would make the same prediction, but I don't think there's much of a gap at all. I think it's going to be very close. It's going to be a great battle. Again, it's just one of those things where it's a battle between two players who people really hope they don't see it all this year, because there's just a big gap between Tannehill and both of them. I look at Kaiser and I just see a little bit higher ceiling, and I know Logan Woodside he's a little bit like Cam Batson. People want to count him out. He keeps coming back. That's going to be very interesting. I mean, look, when Trevor Siemian signed last year, I know that I was probably on that train of, okay, well then Trevor Siemian's your 2. Well, he wasn't as good as Woodside. Maybe that was a little bit more about Siemian not being good than anything else, but Woodside has been able to hang in there. That's going to be really interesting. And obviously, if you're the Titans, you hope that presence of a real competition elevates both of them, because you need improvement there in the event of losing Tannehill for a couple weeks or something where you need to try to figure a way to cobble together a win.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something you've had to deal with since Tannehill's been the starting quarterback. He's been very healthy. He's been very durable. He's taken every meaningful snap that you've needed him to take since he took over as quarterback for the Titans. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying, but that's paramount this year. He's got to remain healthy, because whether it's Deshaun Kaiser or Logan Woodside, long term with those two guys at quarterback, it's not going to end well. So that's going to be obviously really important. I do wonder though, like if you get into a situation where it's going to be 2 games, like Tannehill's going to miss 2 games, is the upside of Kaiser at that point maybe a little bit at the end of the day? But I think in terms of the vertical passing game, probably a little bit more potential there with Kaiser than there would be from Woodside.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, do you want like a playmaker or just the safer game manager who, hands off a lot and makes the simple play? I mean, I agree. I mean, I think Kaiser has more potential to be an explosive player in the NFL, but that doesn't always win the day. You got to feel comfortable that in this situation, in this scenario, you don't want to happen, that someone can come in and be fully in command and manage a game for you.
I got a texter on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Going back to the kicker position, says Titans just need to have open tryouts at the next Nashville SC practice for the kicker spot. Let's bring in a soccer player.
It works out. Soccer players can do the job.
They can.
Worth a look. Of course, their season goes well into November.
Yeah.
So
and you already let Sam Sloman get away, which still Titans legend. You just let him walk out the door.
Number 2
ends up with the Rams.
The real number 2.
That's right. Get out of here, Julio. Let's go back to the text line. Got a texter that says, since the new offensive coordinator was Ferkser's position coach, did Downing convince the Titans that he will do the job. I will say that he did. I would say the Todd Downing maybe Todd Downing's a big fan of Anthony Ferkser, and that's why the Titans have not yet made a move at tight end.
Well, Todd Downing, he said it at some point during spring interviews, like people are sleeping on him as a blocker. So, and I can't sit here and say, well, Todd, having broken down every single rep that Ferkser took last year, you're wrong. He was only effective on 37.3% of those snaps. This is a Pro Football Focus fake stat I'm throwing out right now. I think it's just like
Glad you clarified.
Yeah, it really is the assumption that comes with Ferkser's size or perceived size, although he's the same size as Jonnu Smith according to the measurements on the roster. So I have no idea. But yeah, I think that's a good point. Downing clearly must like it. Now we don't know. The problem with stuff like this is I think that they were probably going to take a tight end once or twice in the draft. It didn't work out, and we still don't know what's going to possibly come here in the next few weeks. But to get even to this point with the tight end roster the way it is, I think that's certainly a vote of confidence for Ferkser as an all-around player.
I think so too, and now it's on him to continue to prove that he can play at that level. I mean, look, TD talked the other day about Briley Moore. I think there's a lot of intrigue there as well. Problem is, you get down to the bottom of that room, and it's between Briley Moore and Miller Forrestall coming in from Alabama and Jared Pinkney as well, which you pointed out. That's a whole lot of youth at the bottom of that room. Now, you're talking about at least two guys that are going to have to play there that are very young with zero NFL experience. Do you want that if you're the Titans? I'm still coming back to say probably not. Probably a better option would be grabbing a veteran on the open market.
Yeah, and like you said, it doesn't have to be trying to figure out a way to get Zach Ertz in here.
Right.
It's just someone who's been in the league a little bit, has some skins on the wall, so to speak. That seems like it would be a worthwhile pursuit, and one that I would not at all be surprised. I think I'd be more surprised if there's not some kind of ad there than if there isn't.
Going back to the offensive line, they brought in Kendall Lam. Obviously, Dennis Kelly, as far as I know, still has yet to find a spot in the NFL, which is surprising to me. I think he'll end up somewhere as training camp goes on here. But Kendall Lam coming in from the Browns in free agency for the Titans. I would assume that he's the starting right tackle at the moment.
Right now, yes.
I do wonder how quickly, if Dylan Radunz has a good camp, are they willing immediately to throw him into the fire as the starting right tackle? Do you want to bring him along a little bit slower and make sure that he's ready to go? I'm interested to see how they handle right tackle because, we talk about Lamb and we talk about Radunz a lot too, and Radunz obviously is going to be the long-term plan when you draft somebody in the second round. But, you do still have some Briley there, which I know he's not able to practice at the moment, but gave you some good snaps last year. I think there's Quesenberry in the mix as well. There's a lot of options you've got at tackle, at offensive line.
Yeah, right now, I think it would be great for the Titans if Radunz has such a good camp that he supplants Lamb before the season. Like right now, if I had to predict, I would predict Kendall Lam starting at right tackle in the opener. But certainly, you hope it's close if you're the Titans. And you spent a second-round pick on him a year after Isaiah Wilson. By the way, I went back and read my 53 from post-camp. And it was one disappointment is Isaiah Wilson hasn't quite been able to, to push for the starting job. But
yeah, that didn't change much.
But still a lot of season to go. We'll see what happens there.
We saw.
But I think Lamb's definitely the one right now, which is no surprise. Veteran comes in, he's got his opportunity. But again, you spend that second round pick on Radunz. I think you're saying we expect him to come right in and really push for that. So. I don't think if Radunz is not the starter in the opening week, that it's a disappointment. But if there's a clear gap between those two guys throughout camp, I would say that's a bit disappointing.
I would say so too. By the way, this coming out from Adam Schefter right now from ESPN. Packers president Mark Murphy and GM Brian Gutekunst are scheduled to address the annual meeting of shareholders today at 11 o'clock local time in Green Bay, which is...
put it on ESPN.
Which is, I mean, they don't have any owners, so it's just an annual meeting of shareholders that they have. I'm sure there'll be some things to talk about today.
How many people is that, do you know?
I don't know.
I mean, angry mob. Let's go. Scream at these people. Scream at them.
Now, not only is it Aaron Rodgers, apparently they have upset Devontae Adams as well. And negotiations for a long-term contract have just, that's it. It's done.
How much of that is related to Rodgers, do you think, if any?
I think a significant amount.
I mean, if you're him, it's like, well, if you're bouncing him, then...
Why would I sign here?
Right.
It's not like the weather is really something going for you in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
I'm here for the Packers just completely melting down. This is great.
Well, I'm glad you are. Good time for you.
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, you get rid of your Lions love, but you don't stop hating the Packers and Bears.
Appreciate that. It's been a great time to be a Packers fan lately.
Hey, it's been a good run, man.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. When we come back, it is time for the Rex Rant, which we do every week on Monday at 7:45. Joe Rexrode's got his rant coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
On Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
And it is that time of the week, time for the Rex Rant. Here on Robby and Rexrode, a little wagon wheel bringing us back in from Darius Rucker. That song just puts me in a good mood, Joe Rexrode. What about you?
I like that better than Hootie and the Blowfish.
Well, really?
So there you go.
I would not have expected that.
I could never tolerate any Hootie and the Blowfish.
Really?
But Darius Rucker's a good singer. I actually like him as a country singer. See?
Yeah.
So now I'm in a good mood. Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome.
That's right. It is time for the Rex Rant. We do this every Monday at 7:45. Joe Rexrode, his rant of the week. Rexrode, I turn things over to you.
All right, this one's quick. I actually need seriously help from both of you. Why the hell is it so hard to not lose chargers and earbuds? Now, maybe this is just my house.
Is this a fatherhood thing?
Well, yeah, but it's a whole house thing. Okay, so at Christmas, my wife tried to make a solution here. So everyone got new ones. Earbuds, chargers. Put your name on it. Different color ink.
Yeah.
Okay? Here you go. Just take care of your world. That's all you got to do. Okay? So I've had my chargers and earbuds stolen about 27 times since then.
I'm sure you have.
Okay. And I'm not, that's an exaggeration, but like I put them in my bag. I put them in maybe little deeper pockets in my bag. No. Gone. Taken. Right now in our house, like there's like one charger that we swap around, and then like all the earbuds have been chewed by the dogs. Okay. I found earbuds recently in my wife's car, and I hid them in a place I'm not going to say in case anybody's listening. But that's where it's gotten. So now my kids are getting earbuds.
The AirPods? Yeah.
AirPods. Yeah, there you go. I called them AirBuds.
That's a movie in the 90s.
That's a movie.
Basketball dog movie. Yeah. AirPods. You know, stupid. AirPods. Are you kidding me? You know how easy it is to lose those things?
Oh, yeah.
And a pair has already been lost, and it got found. Adam Bing is in the studio right now just shaking his head at me. I mean, it's out of hand, man. And the only thing I can say is don't lose your AirPods. Don't lose anything else. And I need you guys to tell me what to do. I don't know what to do here.
Well, the AirPods thing, those are, if you're having trouble losing the wired headphones, which are attached that you can like hang around your body and keep them on your neck. Like I still have the cord headphones.
Yeah.
I've not gone to the AirPods yet.
Why would anyone go to the AirPods?
You go to the AirPods.
It's great. Like when you're running, it's pretty cool to just not have, the cords. My wife's got a pair of AirPods, and they're pretty cool to run in. I'll say that. But, in general, if you're losing the headphones with the cord on them, you think that's going to be any better with ones that don't have cords that are just in your ear that you put down and put in these cases? I think you maybe have a creek on that one.
Why is jogging without what's the difference?
You get all tangled.
I'm not going to lie and say I jog a lot, but
you can sometimes when I'm running, like my arm will come through and it'll hit the cords and it rips the phone off and rips the headphones out, and it makes me want to like punch a stop sign. So I don't do that. So I could probably use some AirPods, but I've had the same pair of headphones for 3 years.
That sounds amazing.
So I've not lost them.
Yeah, good for you. See? How hard is it?
It's not very difficult.
You keep them in one place.
No, it's hard. And you were explaining your story of your family, and if my parents are listening, they're going to shake their heads because I'm the charger stealer.
Oh. Uh-huh.
You need one, and you grab it, and yeah.
But how do you lose it? That's my question.
Right, like it should either be in a plug or I guess in your traveling bag. Like those are the only two places my charger ends up, is in the plug or in the bag. Those are the only two places.
I always lose mine. Always. I don't know. I've got
just leave it at random places.
Leave it at places, steal people's in the families. When I go home, like it's an issue in our household as well.
But you're the offender.
Well, it's all of us. It's all four kids.
Yeah. Well, there's one kid in particular, I won't name any names, who is a particular offender, okay?
I have a guess, but I'm not going to guess.
Yeah. You're right.
Thank you.
But again, I'm trying to but again, not alone. Not the only one, not the only issue. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it was a great idea by Katie. Everyone, here you go. We're starting new. Different colored ink with your name. I mean, it was like 2 weeks later. But the AirPods, AirBuds.
Yes, the earbuds.
I will never. I think a big appeal of those that these kids think they're cool.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think kids just think they look cool.
Yeah.
Like it's a status. Ooh, I have AirPods. They look stupid to me. And plus, do they really stay in?
Yeah.
They stay in well?
Yeah.
In any shape of ear?
I mean, in my experience, the AirPods stay in.
If I had AirPods, this is why I never get nice sunglasses, because there's something that, I lose them all the time.
Right.
I will always have $9.99 sunglasses because of that. I go to Walmart just to get sunglasses.
Right.
I would never even consider AirPods. You're toast.
People just don't like to talk to people nowadays, too. Like the young generation, they're texting and everything like that. AirPods, they're just like, oh, I'm cool. I don't have to talk to anybody. I can't hear you, you know?
That's a good point if you have them in. Not that if you had earbuds in, it's still, but like the AirPods is like a little bit more of a statement. Like, yeah, man, I'm doing something really important here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Andrew from Dover texting in. If you have your AirPods synced up to your phone, you can find them on your Find Me app on your iPhone.
Oh, I'm aware. Because believe me, when the AirPods were lost initially, this should have been easy because of that, and it took forever and whatever. I don't need to get into it. But yes, I like that. I like the fact that you can find them with the. But I still mine will go down in a sewer.
Craig texting in says, "Preach it, Chargers especially." Gentry Estes, our good friend from the Tennessean on Twitter, says, "Preach, Joe Rexrode. Cell phones, chargers, and earbuds." I think
Cell
I said
phones
earbuds.
Too.
No, cell phone chargers. I said that the wrong way.
I was
Sorry.
like, man,
if you're losing cell phones that frequently, you got, I think, a bigger issue at hand. I can't say that I've ever lost. I don't think I've ever lost a pair of headphones. Now, I've had headphones that have worn out over time, and the audio quality was not as good. So I've had some iPhone headphones that I could hear out of one side, and at that point I'm like, okay, well, it's time to get some new headphones.
I mean, we have that problem around here right now.
We do.
The one side issue.
Exactly. But I've never lost a pair of headphones. I just don't understand, unless you're running along and they just fall out of your pocket or something. But
right, how
leaving them behind, I don't get that.
Just again, keep them. Yeah, there's a cord. The cord should help. Keep them in the same place. When I had a Walkman in the 80s, I did not lose my Walkman headphones.
Yeah.
I cherished them. I valued them.
I've had my
look at Michelle's look on her face, like, what the hell?
What's a
I've
Walkman?
never heard of that.
You never heard of a Walkman?
Oh, that's amazing. That makes me so happy that she's never heard of that.
You got to Google Walkman. Are you a millennial? Are you the next gen?
I'm a millennial. I think
she's right on the edge.
I'm right on the edge
Born
of that in Gen Z, 97.
Okay, then you are the young millennial.
Yeah.
You are the youngest, I think millennial.
The youngest possible millennial.
98.
98 maybe.
Goes about 98, 99-ish. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so now you can also complain with us about this younger generation.
Yeah, I just made it, guys, right there.
Just Google Walkman, though. It's a magical thing.
That makes me so happy.
Ryan Port just texted us, said, AirPods are the bomb.com.
The bomb.
Yeah, you look cool. Walk around with your AirPods. And they fall. I just can't believe that they stay in your ear that well.
Now, I'll say this. I've had my charger stolen from me many times, and not intentionally, but hey, can I borrow your charger? And then it's never returned.
Sure.
That drives me nuts. A former Nashville Predator that will not be named did that to me one time at an establishment here in Nashville as well. Just, hey, can I borrow your phone charger, Robby? Sure.
Victor Arvidsson?
It was not Victor Arvidsson. It was a Victor.
Ryan Ellis?
No.
It was a Victor.
Yeah. A little bit before your time.
Okay.
Well, I've already said it's Victor Bartley. That's who it was.
You got called out, man.
Sorry.
No, that happens, and that is annoying.
He showed up to practice 2 days later. He's like, hey, bud, I have your phone charger. I was like, yeah.
So you got it back?
Yeah. I got it back.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Again, to me, it's the sneaking around. I go to so many times in the last couple of years. I'll go to work. I know where I put my charger. I know where I put my earbuds. I need them. I need to do a phone call with an interview. I need to plug in my earbuds. They're gone.
There's nothing
you're
can
messing
do.
with my livelihood.
Bring back the earbuds, for God's sake. We really need to get you some AirPods now. I think you would really like them.
I think they look dumb. Well, they got like the I don't like them. No, I don't trust myself with those.
Okay.
Even though I understand you can
they
do
come in a
the
case.
sync up thing.
All you got to do is take them out of the ear, put them in a case.
I know. I see the little case being charged by the one charger that's left in my home.
Oh, tough times.
But also, Apple
First world
changes the
problems.
chargers all the times.
That's true.
Yeah.
So then that's annoying too.
That is true.
Yeah, so my wife's phone, she has like the charger where you just put it on top of the phone, or you put the phone on top of it, right? But then I can't use that one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I still have an iPhone. What is this, like 7 or something? It's got the
Yours is
button,
probably a 7, yes.
right? I never want to change.
Let's quickly roll through the text line. April in Portland texting in. Yes, Joe, they look stupid, and I make my kiddos take them out during class unless they're finished with their work.
Good for you.
Sonny texting in. My solution is that I just have a charger for every situation that I need one. I've got one in the living room, the bedroom, work, etc. So that's what you need to do is just buy
a whole
about
bunch.
17 chargers and have them stationed everywhere you go.
And in 6 months, there'll be 3 left.
Blake texting in. I like the fact that with AirPods you aren't tethered to your device. You can get up and move around without the phone, especially on a call. This is coming from Blake. So likes the mobility, the freedom that AirPods provide.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, you can have headphones, wireless headphones too, which I do. I have a pair of wireless headphones. That Katie bought me those too.
Nate saying, don't get the off-brand. They don't stay in your ears.
Off-brand AirPods?
Yeah.
Or are those the earbuds?
Are those the earbuds? If they're not, they need to be. That was amazing.
There should be generic AirPods called AirBuds, right?
That's right. That is today's edition of the Rex Rant. You can check it out every Monday morning at 7:45 here on Robby and Rexrode. When we come back, we'll be joined in studio by the great Adam Vingan. Coming up next, lots to get into with the Nashville Predators free agency just a couple of days away. We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the wholesaling studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Adam Vingan here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Adam, what's going on? Thanks for joining us this morning.
Rexrode, what's your favorite Air Bud movie? Is it Air Bud Golden Retriever, Air Bud 7th Inning Fetch?
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about that one.
The original Air Bud. I looked this up before I came in here. It's
7th Inning Fetch. Wow. I've never seen 1 second of an Air Bud
I feel
movie.
like
How many are there?
There's like 3 or 4.
At least 3 or 4, maybe 5.
No, there's like a lot. There's like 6 or 7, I think.
Is that right?
Is there that many?
They got the puppy ones now. I got younger sisters. They've watched them all.
There was also Air Bud
Is there like a new generation Air Bud?
Air Bud World Pup. It's the one where he plays soccer.
Wow.
I've seen none of that. Also, no Space Jam. No, not a
Either
second.
Space Jam?
Either Space Jam. Never. No,
I have
won't
yet
watch
to
them.
watch the new Space Jam. It's on the list just because I feel like I have to. The original Space Jam, it doesn't hold up. It was great when it came out. It doesn't hold up.
I was told by a child who I will name. Brennan says that the first one is way better than the new one, and that Michael Jordan is a way better actor than LeBron James.
There you go.
What
You
is
buy
the,
that? I could buy that.
What is the best acting job by a NBA player in history, and why is it Ray Allen and he got game?
That's a good
I was
point.
going to say, I was trying to think of like what would,
George
no doubt.
Murasan in My Giant with Billy Crystal.
Didn't see that, but that's amazing.
Shazam, right? Is that the one with
That's
Shaq?
a Shaq, yes.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
Shazam.
put that in there.
No, that would be near the bottom of my list.
It's not great.
I've never seen that, but I would think that Shaq would be pretty good.
Not in those days.
Yeah?
I think if he did it now, he'd be fine.
LeBron was a better actor in Trainwreck. He was in that movie Trainwreck with
He was fine in that.
with Bill Hader and what's the comedian's
Oh, it's
name?
a great.
Amy
I love
Schumer.
That. Yeah, Amy Schumer. I love that movie.
Yeah, that he was actually pretty good in that.
LeBron, you're right. He
You
was,
talk about a collection of three people that get on my nerves. You just
Amy
nailed it with
Schumer,
those
Bill
three right
Hader,
there.
and LeBron James.
Yes.
It is a varied collection of people.
Yes.
Anyway,
What the heck do you have against Amy Schumer? Freaking hilarious.
I don't think she's funny at all.
Oh my god.
she's an acquired taste.
She's like the Beatles. Rexrode is going to leave.
I do have AirPods,
Sorry, I
by
gotta
the
go get
way.
tested,
I am
guys.
pro AirPod. So,
There you go.
yeah.
Okay, that's fine. As long as you're anti-steal everybody else's charger and
Oh, yes. Very much so.
AirPods or earbuds or whatever, then
Yes.
we're on the same page.
Yes.
Are we uncomfortably? This is an interesting. I guess this is how.
This is how it used to
like
be.
Darren, Donick, and Chase, and
Yeah.
I mean, this would be
Got three people in the
yeah.
studio.
Except Darren. When was the last time Darren was in the studio?
He came in a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If I were him, I would never come back.
Willie's been in every day.
That's right. Adam Vidgen from The Athletic on with us here on Robby and Rexrode.
You're outnumbered here.
We are outnumbered, that is for sure. Two members of The Athletic to my right here, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. And Adam, we are now 2 days away from free agency in the NHL. The NHL draft has come and gone over the weekend. The expansion draft has come and gone as well.
Mercifully.
I was gonna bring that up with you. How glad are you to not have to answer questions about the expansion draft anymore?
I am just glad that we got the boy Callie
That was amazing.
for the rest of our lives. What is better? Was it the boy Callie or Sean Kemp's hilarious attempt at pronouncing Jonas Donskoy
The Sean Kemp, I think, was better.
wearing a shirt from Baby Gap?
Sean Kemp's been having a good time.
I like
Since
Boy
he
Boy
retired.
Callie better, but they were both very good.
Very good. Very
when
good
they
stuff
when they
from
cut
Seattle.
to Kevin Weeks with Marshawn Lynch as they were about to announce Callie Yarncroke, I got very excited. I was just like, how is this going to go down? And when they have the tribute video to Callie when he returns early in the season, it better just be that clip right
better
there.
be a lot of Marshawn Lynch in there for sure.
Yes. Anyway,
So now with the Predators 2 days away from free agency in the NHL, they've freed up some money, obviously, with Arvidsson out the door, Ryan Ellis out the door as well. How active do you think the Predators will be when it comes to free agency coming up here in just a couple of days in the NHL?
well, first off, I just want to say that the level of activity in the NHL over the past several days has been fun to watch.
It has been.
A lot of us who follow the NHL want NBA-like trade deadlines where you see these gigantic moves and huge contracts and notable players in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but especially Friday. But, we think about the players that were moved or re-signed over the past 3 days. Seth Jones, Cale Makar, Sam Reinhart, Jakub Voracek, Cam Atkinson, Taylor Hall, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I'm definitely missing a couple of people in there.
You got the big names.
But that Seth Jones contract is still blowing my mind.
Seth Jones of the Chicago Blackhawks, by the way, if you missed that.
Traded from Columbus to Chicago, and in conjunction with the trade, signed an 8-year contract with a $9.5 million cap hit, which will make him the third highest paid defenseman in the league, not this coming season, but the season after. He has a higher cap hit than Roman Josi.
What are the Blackhawks thinking here?
I'm wondering if they want to accelerate their rebuild, which I think oftentimes backfires on teams.
Become a more competitive rebuild, so to
Yes,
speak?
a competitive rebuild, as it were. I've heard that term before. But you would think that they still have Patrick Kane. Jonathan Taves presumably will be back after missing all of last season. They have Alex DeBrincat. They have Kirby Doc. They have
And his little brother now.
And his little brother. And they and Seth has his little brother too, Caleb, on the team as well. Traded in the Duncan Keith trade. So I think there's some danger in that. And I think the Blackhawks are a good example of what the Predators should not do in free agency. I don't think they should try to do anything to accelerate their quote unquote competitive rebuild. I think, look, the cap space is tantalizing. You look at it, but then you look at the free agent market, and there really isn't a whole lot out there. Taylor Hall, he re-signed with the Boston Bruins on a very team-friendly rate, 4 years with a $6 million cap hit. They've done some good work in Boston in terms of signing, big players to reasonable contracts. Brad Marchand is under a really good deal. I think Patrice Bergeron is under a really good deal. Alex Ovechkin is expected to re-sign with the Capitals in the coming days. I heard Elliot Freeman on his 31 Thoughts podcast say he was thinking 3 years with a $10 million cap hit for Alex Ovechkin, which I guess would make sense. Gabriel Landeskog is still out there. It seems that he and the Avalanche are still working things out, but my guess is that they figure it out. But yeah, there really isn't a whole lot out there on the free agent market that, screams, let's spend a lot of money and bring this guy in. I think the Predators are starting to learn a little bit that maybe signing certain guys to big contracts at long terms is not the right way to go about things. So I think they should avoid doing that at all costs, even with their own players that they're trying to re-sign, like Mikael Granlund. I think a shorter-term deal would be better in that case. But to me, I think the best course of action for the Predators, honestly, is just to sit this one out. Like, if you want to sign a veteran player, to a reasonable contract to fill a hole, sure. But, go in on the kids this year. Make sure that you give Ellie Tolvanen and Yakov Trenin and Tanner Jeannot and now Cody Glass and Philip Myers. Give those players a chance to actually play and not, sign free agents that are going to prevent them from getting more playing time. That's just my opinion, of course.
Well, and we talked about that the other day, too. I mean, a couple of the decisions you're going to have to make, Haula, Granlund, right? And how do the recent moves from this Predators team, how do you view that if you're Granlund? To me, Granlund has to feel great about his role here, how important he is here. John Hines obviously loves Mikael Granlund. I mean, he was awesome for the Predators ever since John Hines took over the job. But if you're Granlund, I mean, you're not getting any younger.
Right.
How do you view the way the team is trending right now? I think that's a big question with him as they move forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about Granlund is it's sort of like not quite, but it's sort of like the Ryan Tannehill discussion that you guys often have. That we here in Nashville who watch Granlund, have seen a player that's transformed since the coaching change. Among forwards, he's averaged the most ice time. He's got the most points, from forwards. I think actually he leads the entire team in points. Well, maybe. I'm not sure what Roman Josi has, but he's been the most productive forward for sure since the coaching change. But from the outside, you see a player that hasn't had the same impact that he did with the Minnesota Wild in the prime of his career. So what are you showing me, Joe? Us being.
I just want you to be able to watch us while you talk. Go
I
ahead.
don't like to look at myself.
I don't want to derail you.
I don't like looking at myself. But I think that's sort of what maybe one thing that Granlund has to consider. I think the opinion of him in Nashville is quite high. I'm curious if the opinion of him outside of Nashville is the same. Just because while the production has been high here, it's not eye-popping. So other teams, other pundits might look at Granlund and see a player who has not, played to his capability. So I wonder if that discrepancy between how we perceive him here and those who haven't watched him since the coaching change regularly perceive him.
When Granlund's agent told you that the talks with the Preds were in Purgatory?
Yes.
What the hell does that mean, pun intended?
I presume that means that they hadn't really made any significant progress. And they have until Wednesday. I mean, they can sign him after the market opens, but if they want to get him signed before the market opens, they don't have that much time. One thing that's been abolished in the NHL is that UFA talking period that was there for the past several years, where there was like I don't know, Robby, was it a week, 3-4 days, something like that, where pending unrestricted free agents could talk to other teams, but they couldn't sign, which basically took the fun out of free agency because all of the contracts were basically agreed to before July 1st.
And were then leaked.
And then were then leaked.
Yeah.
So
and there's free agency.
Right. So that process has been abolished under the new CBA. So teams can't sign other players officially, quote unquote, because that there's probably tampering going on, until noon on Wednesday. So, I know that Granlund likes it here. I mean, he clearly feels important. But like I said, I think there is some trepidation on the Predators' part after seeing how poorly some of these long-term contracts have gone lately to sign players to long-term contracts. I mean, Duchesne and Johansson, of course, we talk about all the time. Ryan Ellis made it through, 2 years of his 8-year contract before he was traded.
Yep.
Kyle Turris is on the books for 7 more years because they bought him out because his contract did not work out. You could make the argument about Victor Arvidsson's contract. So I think that's smart of the Predators to be concerned or cautious about inking players to long-term deals. But if Granlund wants a long-term deal and the Predators are saying, well, we don't really want to do that, here's a 2 or 3 year contract, Granlund at his age might want long-term security. So that's the question the Predators would have to ask themselves. Is it more important to stick to your guns and say, well, we're turning over a new leaf here and we're not signing players to long-term deals? Or do you risk losing a player who's been very important for them for the last year and a half?
We'll continue this discussion with Adam Vingan from The Athletic when we come back, taking your thoughts as well on the Nashville Predators on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, you're taking off for a little bit to go get tested for Titans training camp, so we will see you when you get back a little bit later today.
You want to take my seat? Or are you going to stay there?
I'll take your seat. This is very awkward.
I'm going to lock my computer up so you can't fake tweet for me.
There we go.
What would be a good fake tweets for Rexrode?
I don't know. Anything with Airbud, probably.
I love Creed.
I would say I love Creed and Bush and Live and all of these post-grunge bands. They're my favorite.
Don't forget Blink.
At Scott Stapp.
Your little Blink-182 in there as well. We'll continue the discussion with Adam Vingan as well when we come back. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. That was Marshawn Lynch at the Seattle expansion draft, announcing Calle Yarncroke to the Seattle Kraken. Do we think that Calle Yarncroke has tapped in with Marshawn Lynch yet to this point?
No.
Don't think so?
I would like to see a buddy comedy starring Calle Yarncroke and Marshawn Lynch.
I would too.
And throw Sean Kemp in there.
Yeah, put him in there. I'm here for it.
That I just have to say this. I appreciate the job that. Well, first of all, I think it's important to note, and this has been mentioned a couple of times, that although the expansion draft was aired on ESPN, I believe it was an NHL production, so the NHL had control over the situation versus ESPN. My mom was in town, and we were watching it, of course, because work, and she was just like, "This is terrible." Like, she did not like the expansion draft.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't help when every single one of your picks have been leaked before the expansion draft takes place.
That does not help. I thought it was clear to me that Chris Fowler and Dominic Moore had never met each other until they stepped on the stage to do it. There was no chemistry. I thought the choice of Chris Fowler was interesting to begin with because I associate him with college football. He also does he do golf?
I think Chris Fowler does a little bit of everything.
He does tennis.
Yeah,
he does. He is a utility player. Hockey, however, not his specialty. He called the Carolina Hurricanes the Carolina Panthers. That was fun. And then the Carolina Panthers turned themselves on Twitter to the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Carolina Hurricanes turned themselves into the Carolina Panthers. They had fun with it.
Fun was had by all.
But yes, the boy Calle, that was among the highlights for sure. Followed by, well, actually, I thought the Sean Kemp Jonas Donskoy was the best part.
I thought it was too. Pretty amazing.
You've tweeted it like 6 times over the past several days.
I will continue to do so at @RStanleyNHL on Twitter. So the Predators now without Calle Yarncroke. Ryan Ellis is out as well. Victor Arvidsson gone. So a lot of
and Pekka Rinne.
Pekka Rinne as well in goal for sure. And they're going to have to figure out who's going to be their backup goaltender as well. We've talked about free agency and how I think you and I both agree. I don't think the Predators need to be all that active in free agency. It doesn't make sense to spend a whole lot of money. I don't think in free agency, but one name, Gabriel Landeskog from the Colorado Avalanche. Now, he is the captain of the Avalanche. He has been a very good player for a long time. He has been an exceptional player the last few years, playing on a line with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen as well. What do you think a guy like Landeskog could be worth on the open market? Should he get there and things not work out with him and the Colorado Avalanche? And is that even something you would consider doing if you're David Poile and the Nashville Predators, going after a guy like Gabriel Landeskog?
What's his current cap hit? Do you happen to know it?
I think it's like 4.5. I don't think it's very high.
It was a team-friendly deal at the time. Gabriel Landeskog is at least an $8 million player on the open market. At least. Probably more. Would I do it?
Last year was 5.5.
Okay.
According to Cap Friendly.
Well, would I do it if I were the Predators? No, I wouldn't do it. And the other question you have to ask yourself is this: why would Gabriel Landeskog want to come to Nashville? We often think about that 2018 playoff series between the Predators and the Avalanche sort of as the coming out of the current Avalanche, because they gave the Predators a lot they gave them a lot to handle in that playoff series, even though the Predators won the series in 6 games. And even watching that team, you could tell this is a team on the rise. This team is starting to get it together. The Avalanche won the President's Trophy last year. They lost in the playoffs to the Vegas Golden Knights, who were I think they tied for points in the standings, and the Avalanche won on a tiebreaker. Yep. They won the President's Trophy on a tiebreaker. So that team is clearly on the up and up. They just signed Cale Makar to a 6-year, $54 million contract. Cale Makar is going to win multiple Norris trophies. You still have Nathan MacKinnon. You still have Mikko Rantanen. They have to re-sign Philip Grubauer, but they still have a very good team. Why would Landeskog, if he had a choice, choose Nashville? What about coming to Nashville in their current state would be appealing to him? Because it'd just
be the money, right?
Right. It's the money, but that it goes back to what I was saying. What's funny is, so 4 years ago, on July 1st, 2017, the Predators traded Colin Wilson to the Avalanche, and that was the year after the Predators went to the Stanley Cup. That was the summer after the Predators went to the Stanley Cup final, and the Avalanche, I think, had 48 points.
Yep.
And I remember talking to Colin shortly after the trade, and I remember him being so excited about going to Colorado, and I just thought to myself, like, that team stinks. Like, why would you be happy about that? And he was right. I mean, that team was clearly on the rise. So sure, if the Predators want to throw money at him, sure, maybe he'll consider it. But it just goes back to what I was talking about before the break. What was the last major contract that the Predators signed, long-term, big money, that has worked out for this organization?
Roman Josi. That's about it.
Yeah, but he's only 1 year into that deal. So, we'll see. I mean, he won the Norris Trophy in the final year of his previous deal.
Right.
Last year, he picked it up absolutely. And look, you hope that Roman Josi is worth that contract. He is going to decline a lot slower, you would think, barring injury.
Sure. Because
he is an elite player, and players of his ilk can maintain a high level of play for a longer period of time. But Matt Duchene's contract is poisonous. Ryan Johansson's contract has not aged well, though, as we've talked about numerous times, it made sense to sign him to that contract at the time.
Yep.
Ryan Ellis's contract, he made it through 2 years. Victor Arvidsson has 3 years left on his deal when he was traded. Kyle Turris was bought out. The Predators typically don't make huge splashes in free agency. That's not their MO. On the way over here, I was thinking about, okay, what was the last major free agent that they signed that actually worked out? I mean, maybe Nick Bonino. Like, he gave them good value over 3 years, I feel like. But it wasn't a huge deal. It was 4.1 against the cap for 4 years. But, my sense is that it would be a stretch for Gabriel Landeskog to end up in Nashville. If I were him, I look at what Colorado's a lot closer.
Yeah, I would say so. And if it's not going to be Landeskog, I mean, as you said, there's not a whole lot of names out there in free agency. And you've come out with a piece today at theathletic.com kind of highlighting what exactly the Predators have gotten in Cody Glass. And Peter DeBoer, who was the coach of Vegas, featured in this piece at theathletic.com with some comments. And I don't want to go through the entire piece because people need to read it at theathletic.com. But when you look at Cody Glass, who obviously was the centerpiece of the return for Ryan Ellis, who was traded to Philadelphia, and the three-way deal had Vegas involved as well. What is Cody Glass at this point? He's 6th overall in 2017. There's a lot of ability there.
Yes.
It's not worked out yet at the NHL level. He's very young, so you have to keep that in mind as well.
22.
But what do you think the Predators have at this moment in Cody Glass?
Well, in talking to Pete DeBoer last week, and one thing I didn't really realize, not watching Cody Glass frequently enough, is in his first season, he suffered a serious right knee injury that kept him out of the lineup for about 6 weeks. And then he goes to the AHL on the conditioning assignment and basically tears the rest of that knee up. Had to have surgery, basically missed the entire offseason of training. So, as Pete said to me in the story, he's basically a year behind. I mean, the injury derailed his development. And one thing DeBoer said, if it was a broken wrist or he blew his shoulder out, it would have been a lot easier for him to come back from that than a knee injury. Cody Glass has played 66 games in the NHL. So I'm not here to say this guy was a bust as the number 6 pick in the 2017 draft. There's still a lot of, you would hope, tread on those tires even with a knee injury. But he has the pedigree of being a big-time scorer in the junior leagues, which doesn't always translate to the NHL, but he has that pedigree. The Predators have rarely been bad enough to pick a player of Cody's caliber at the top of the draft, and I think it's a gamble worth taking. To me, I think the best place for Cody, and this is after talking to Pete, is being a top 6 center and playing with good players. And one thing he said to me in the story was, Cody Glass did not factor into the Vegas Golden Knights' lineup through most of the playoffs. And he said, people were asking me why. He said, well, you're not doing that kid any favors playing him on the 4th line. He needs to play with good players. So if Granlund leaves, to me, Cody Glass is the most logical person to play second line center. And you can play him with Luke Cunnin, or you can play him with Ellie Tolvanen. And that would accomplish the Predators' goal of getting younger at key positions, because Glass is 22, Cunnin's 23, and I think Tolvanen's 21 or 22.
Yep.
That would be a big deal. That would be a big deal in terms of getting that youth, that experience. So, I think it was reclamation projects are risky when you take on a player that didn't work out somewhere else. Remember, the Predators actually acquired Nolan Patrick, who was the number 2 pick in the 2017 draft from Philadelphia, and then flipped him for Glass with Vegas. And Patrick is in the same position. Patrick missed an entire season. He had, concussion, post-concussion.
Basically like
symptoms,
vertigo.
Migraine issues. He's young too, and they're hoping that he can bounce back. So I'm very intrigued by Cody Glass. I think a fresh start will do him some good. I thought Pete's comments in the story were really interesting. So please read it so I make my bosses happy.
You can check that out at theathletic.com. We'll continue the conversation on the Predators when we come back. Got some of your thoughts to get to as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Robbie Stanley alongside Adam Vingan from The Athletic. We'll be right back here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 1025 The Game. This Friday, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game this Sunday, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Participate this Friday morning at 9:45. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Adam Vinkin in for this hour for Joe Rexrode as he goes to Tennessee Titans training camp to get tested for COVID. So those are the media protocols going into place for Rexrode to cover Titans training camp. He'll be back a little bit later in the show. Right now, talking Predators. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Paul texting in. Question for both of you guys. What do you think of the Predators roster as presently constructed? It seems like Poyle and Hines are building the team around the identity line, which doesn't seem like a winning strategy. And that is a very popular question right now, Adam. What is this Predators team? What does the roster mean at the present moment? Is it a playoff team? Is it not a playoff team? And I think more importantly than that, what is the plan right now for the Predators? Because we've heard the competitive rebuild term being thrown out there by David Poyle. Obviously, a lot of change has happened already this offseason, with some more changes still to come. What do you think the plan is for the Predators right now from their perspective, and does it match up, in your opinion, to what you think it should be at this point for the Nashville Predators?
Well, to answer Paul's question about whether this is did he ask if it was a playoff team, or did you ask him?
I asked that, but he asked about the identity line. It seems like they're building the team around that line.
Well, I think it was clear when you go back to the second half of the season, when the Predators won 20 of their final 28 games, and you look at the players that played a significant role in that turnaround. You know, we're talking about Tanner Jeannot. We're talking about Yakov Trenin and Matthew Olivier and Colton Sissons and Mikael Granlund and Luke Cunnin, you know, Nick Cousins. You know, we're not talking about Philip Forsberg or Ryan Johansson or Matt Duchene. And I think it's important that this team has an identity. And I think for the first time in several years, we can tell what the identity is. Now, is it an identity that will lead to long-term success? Who knows? But at least it's there. I mean, there was a period of time where you didn't know which Predators team you were getting on a nightly basis. You know, were they going to try to be a skilled team and score a lot of goals and make highlight reel plays? Were they going to try to grind out wins and keep it low scoring and defensive? But now you know what you're getting. So I think that's a step in the right direction. Even if it's not the formula for, you know, that teams that win championships recently have used. But, you know, I think about some free agents. I think about some free agents that are out there. You know, one free agent that I personally liked that I think would have accomplished two things. It would have fit into the identity of the team, but he also would have been able to play a top six role and be effective with Zach Hyman. But all signs point to Zach Hyman signing with the Edmonton Oilers.
Formerly of Toronto. And it hasn't been determined yet if it's a 7 or 8 year contract. It depends on whether the Maple Leafs, you know, work out a sign and trade with the Oilers to get that 8th year. I think, you know, all reports, it seems that that's probably not going to happen, and that Hyman will sign for 7 years on Wednesday. You know, but, you know, another player that's interesting that's out there, you know, that has a history with John Hines, who has won championships recently and can provide a bit of offense, is Blake Coleman, who played for John in New Jersey and, you know, won 2 Stanley Cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning recently. I think Elliot Freeman had a blog last night where he said he thinks that Coleman's going to get 5 years times 6, and there's risk in that because Coleman's an older player. You know, he was a third-line player for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but that's because he played for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's probably a top 6 player on a different team. But, you know, it's interesting because I remember I got a mailbag question from The Athletic earlier this month, you know, about going after Patrick Laine or going after Vladimir Tarasenko or even going after Jack Eichel. And, you know, the one thing that I responded to this reader was sometimes the best player is not always the right player. You know, Patrick Laine, we know that guy can score. You know, he's an amazing scorer.
but
That's about it.
He's indifferent towards defense, and it drove John Tortorella up a wall. Knowing John Hines and how he likes to coach, I'm sure Patrick Laine would drive him up the wall. So yes, Laine would bring that goal scoring that the Predators sorely lack. But does he fit into the identity of what the Predators are trying to build? I don't think so. And reports out of Columbus suggest that he's going to accept his qualifying offer, which is 1 year, $7.5 million. Stick around in Columbus. They have a new coach. They just acquired Jakub Voracek, who will probably play with Patrick Laine. So maybe things will change for Laine. But that's the important thing. When you think about all of these, players that have been on the move or players that are rumored to be available, the best player is not always the right player. And I think teams oftentimes get trapped in the idea that if the best player is going to come here and continue to be the best player.
So with that in mind, I agree with you. I think you said it perfectly there. I think a good approach to the Predators this offseason is try and get Saros signed, try and get Granlund signed. I mean, I guess you can try to get Eric Hall signed there as well. Get a backup goalie. You'll need that. But you don't need to be going crazy in free agency. So with that in mind, if that's the route they go, and let's just say for the sake of argument, Granlund's back in here too. Is this team a playoff team? Is the team currently constructed and you add Granlund to the mix, is that a playoff team?
I think they're a bubble team again. I mean, first of all, I went to the NHL page and they put back the divisions for next season and it threw me for a loop. I was like, wait a minute, Minnesota? Colorado? Because I was so used to thinking about Carolina and Tampa and Florida.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about the new look Central Division, which is basically the old Central Division, but Arizona is now in the Central Division because Seattle is going to the Pacific Division. And I was thinking about the teams in the Central Division and which teams the Predators are clearly better than. And there are only two that came to mind. Arizona, which is probably going to be in the race for the number 1 pick.
Yep.
And Chicago. Those are the only two teams that I can say the Predators are probably better than that team. Everybody else, they're either on the same level or worse than, because they're not as good as Colorado. They're not as good as Minnesota, I don't think. Especially if Minnesota plays the way they did last season.
Yeah.
They're probably on the same level as Dallas. They're probably on the same level as Winnipeg, and they're probably on the same level as St. Louis. Maybe they're slightly better than St. Louis. So, they're in that middle point again. So if we assume that Arizona and Chicago are at the bottom, and we assume that Colorado and Minnesota are at the top, that leaves Nashville, St. Louis, Winnipeg, and Dallas, for 2 playoff spots, maybe 3 playoff spots, depending what happens in the Pacific Division. The Predators are basically this. I feel like they're in the same position they were in last year. Like, I think they're a bubble team. Like, I think their ceiling is first wild card in the Western Conference. Right now, if you just say, okay, they don't add anybody else significant, they re-sign Granlund, they re-sign Saros, maybe they re-sign Haula, they add a backup goaltender, and they ride with the youth. Like, to me, they're a wild card team at best. But sometimes, as David Poyle said, you have to take a step back to hopefully take a step forward. And I think that's important. Like, this team has taken enough risks to try to win a Stanley Cup. This is not the year to keep doing that. If you miss the playoffs this year, it might be bad. Like, when the team was really bad in the first half of the season, a lot of us, you, me, Joe, Jared, we were like, just tank. Like, the best thing that could happen to this organization is they miss the playoffs because it will shake them back to reality that this team is not a championship. I keep hitting the mic. Sorry. The championship team that they thought they were. The playoff run, lulled them into maybe a false sense of security. But I think it was Jared who has said, I want this team to either be really, really good or really, really bad. And I don't disagree with him on that point. Like, surprise, shock the world and be a good team which I don't expect to happen, or just be bad. Put yourself in a position for a lottery pick. But right now they just look like a team that's, mediocre again, which is not where you want to be.
We'll continue the discussion on the Predators when we come back. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Adam Vingan in for Joe Rexrode for the next few minutes, and Michelle Knezovic here with you as well. Talking Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. So we've talked about kind of where this roster sits at the moment, free agency coming up in a couple of days for the Predators. But one thing that's now on the table as well that I'm interested to get your thoughts on. The expansion draft has come and gone, and with that, the conversation of moving one of Johansson or Duchesne is now come and gone too, because unless I am just totally wrong, I mean, nobody's trading for either one of those two. So at the moment, you are stuck with those two contracts.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make it work? Because that has been something they've not been able to do the last couple of years. We know about Matt Duchesne. It's not worked out. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Johansson's had his moments. I think early on in the contract was very good for the Predators.
Yes.
The last couple of years
Not so much.
has not been the same in the regular season. But now you're stuck with them. So how do you make this work with Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchesne with those contracts as they move forward here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all tried to warn you being the listeners, that the likelihood of one of those two players being taken in the expansion draft was slim to none. And I also would like to say, because we haven't talked, you and I, since the expansion draft, 0 side deals by Seattle.
It's pretty crazy.
Which is, we all expected it to happen. And I think there were 10 in the Vegas expansion draft. And the Golden Knights ended up with the likes of Alex Tuch and Jonathan Marchessault and Riley Smith and Shea Theodore because of those types of trades. And multiple first-round draft picks. I don't think Cody Glass was one of those draft picks, but I think Nick Suzuki was one of them.
Yep.
Who they traded to Montreal for Max Pacioretty. So that was amazing. Clearly, the general managers around the league learned their lesson from last time, that they were not going to be held hostage by the Seattle Kraken. But the fact, and you might also have to blame the Kraken. Perhaps they overplayed their hand. Perhaps they were too greedy. But I thought it was interesting because that was the one thing that we were waiting for with all of the leaks of the expansion roster. Where there's got to be side deals for them to take these. There were some randos the guy they took from Philadelphia who I had never heard of, and the guy from San Jose, Alexander True. I didn't think he was real at all. Sounds like a one of those auto draft guys on NHL 22.
Yes.
But no side deals. So. When it comes to those two players in particular, because you're going to have to make it work. I think it would be wise to basically, put those two together, because we talk about them together, but I think on the line, I think you put Matt Duchesne on the right wing of Ryan Johansson, presumably Philip Forsberg on the left wing, and you're John Hines, and you say, you're our big line. Don't screw it up. I think, I think that's the best way to do it. Is you need to put. Not to say that they have not been put in a position to succeed. You could argue that Matt Duchesne in particular, it hasn't been the. There's been times where you wonder, about his usage. But, if you put them on if you put those three on your top line and they don't produce, they have no one to blame but themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would do. And see if it works, because you're going to have to make it work, because nobody wants those contracts. Do you even the Predators would have? Think about. We were talking about this during the break. We were talking about some of the draft capital that the Arizona Coyotes were able to get for taking on some bad deals. I think they got 3 draft picks for Andrew Ladd, and they got a 2nd round pick and a 7th round pick for Shane Gostisbehere. And they got the 9th pick in the draft to take on 3 bad Canucks contracts: Antoine Roussel, Jay Beagle, and Louis Eriksson in the Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Connor Garland deal. To me, that's a better use of the Predators' cap space than going out and signing a free agent. Take on a bad contract. If you're not expecting to be a real competitive team this year, a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, take on a bad contract, get a couple draft picks, what could it hurt, especially if you're not expecting to be, at the top of the league this year. if there are teams out there that have bad deals, why not add another one to your mix and actually get something for it? Like, why not?
Kathleen on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Any chance of getting James Neal back?
Pass.
You think there's any chance that James Neal could be available?
Why would you want James Neal?
Well, it depends on what the price is, right?
Well, he's he's got
to get bought out first.
For all intents and purposes, he is expected to be bought out by the Edmonton Oilers. Could you get James Neal for $1 million? Sure, but James Neal has not been good in 3 years.
Right.
I mean, he had a 20-goal James Neal season in his first year after the Vegas expansion draft. He went to Calgary, was a non-factor. Went to Edmonton in a trade for Milan Lucic in a change of scenery trade, was a non-factor. I know a lot of Predators fans love them some James Neal, and he brings an element for sure that the Predators don't have, as a scorer with some bite to his game, but that was 4 years ago.
Well, I think the question you've got to ask at that point, if you're the Predators, is are you better served bringing in a guy like James Neal
who knows your group?
Who knows your group, and I think maybe in this scenario, you might be able to get 10, 15 goals out of him. Is that worth it? Are you better off doing that and him occupying a spot in the lineup, or are you better off giving one of those spots to a Philip Tomasino or a Cody Glass or one of your younger players?
Like I said, I think this is the season where, to me, this is, we're talking about a quote-unquote competitive rebuild. Like, this is the season where, and I can't remember who said it, whether it was you or Chase, somebody on the station said this, where I listen to so much 102.5, it all runs together. But all the shows are great, of course.
Thank you.
This is the season where you evaluate what you have.
That was me.
That was you.
Yeah.
Okay. Really rely on, thank you, Robby, pat yourself on the back for that one. Take a hard look at Eeli Tolvanen. Take a good look at Philip Tomasino. Take a good look at Jeremy Davies and David Ferentz. Last year, the Predators got a lot of criticism from the fan base after David Poile talked about a youth movement, and then they signed Mark Borowiecki and Nick Cousins and Eric Holla and Mikhail Granlund. Like, don't do that again. Like, sign the guys you need to re-sign, and then just give it over to the youth. Like, see what you have. And then if you're not confident in the youth that you have and you want to turn over the roster even more, sure. But, like, there comes a point where, and I feel like they're finally at this point where they realize that this group is not going to win a Stanley Cup, which is exactly why they traded Victor Arvidsson and traded Ryan Ellis. Like, I feel it would be counterproductive to do all of what they've done over the past 3 weeks and then go out and sign a big name or a veteran.
I agree.
So, I'm not in charge, of course, but I would just stay away.
Well, also, you're in a good spot cap space wise right now. I mean, it's a flat cap. According to Cap Friendly, you've got somewhere around $28 million in cap space right now if you're the Predators. Now, you've got to sign Saros. Maybe Granlund's a part of that too. Like, you're going to eat up some money along the way in there. But, I mean, I look at, evaluating the young players this year. If they take the steps that you want them to take and you feel good about your young core moving forward, all of a sudden you look ahead to free agency next year. There's some pretty interesting names out there. Now, one of those is your own in Philip Forsberg and Matthias Ekholm, and we'll see what happens on that front. But, I mean, you look around, Colton Parayko, a free agent. Alexander Barkov, a free agent next year.
What happened to Parayko? I feel like his stock has dropped a little bit.
Maybe
it's because I didn't watch him last year, and I'm used to seeing him 5 or 6 times a year.
Yeah.
But, like, that's not a name I've heard in a couple of years.
No. Johnny Gaudreau, a free agent next year. I mean, there are some interesting names on the free agent market next year. And I think the approach I'm probably taking if I'm David Poile and the Predators, let's see what you got in these young guys. Hopefully they can develop and progress to what you need them to play like. I think Cody Glass and Philip Tomasino are the two most intriguing ones on that front. And if you like what you see and you feel like maybe you're closer than you originally thought to getting back into contention, maybe next year is when you dip your toe into the free agency water. The more we talk about it and the more you lay out the picture, it just doesn't make any sense to me for the Predators to be all that active in free agency this year.
No, I think, they, like I said, they need to sign a backup goalie. And, I thought another trade that happened over the weekend that we didn't mention, Alex Nedeljkovic being traded from the Carolina Hurricanes to the Detroit Red Wings. And as part of that deal, the Red Wings acquired the rights to Jonathan Bernier.
Yep.
Bernier would be an interesting choice for a backup for the Predators. Look, there are always guys out there. Bernier's out there if he doesn't re-sign with Carolina. Ranta's out there. Halak is out there. Carter Hutton is out there, who said he would be interested in a return to Nashville because this is where his career was born, basically. So there, another name that's out there on the buyout market, Braden Holtby. If the Golden Knights, if the Canucks buy out Holtby, who's been subpar since moving from Washington to Vancouver, but did he win a Vezina?
Yeah, I think so.
He won a Vezina. He's had some great seasons. I mean, I covered Holtby at the beginning of his career in Washington. Maybe that's an interesting choice for a backup. To me, that's the priority. Is you need to find a backup goaltender for UC Saros who can play 30 games, and you feel comfortable playing more if UC gets injured. Like I think you need a guy with, I wouldn't say extensive starting experience, but like enough that if UC got hurt or struggled, you have another guy. I love Carter Hutton. Carter Hutton's a great guy. I would love to have him back in that dressing room. He's had some rough years in Buffalo. Like when he first went to St. Louis, he was great. Yeah. And then he went to Buffalo and it was not good. But,
do we think that's the black hole that is the Buffalo Sabres?
I mean,
or is
that was the conversation with the Rasmus Ristolainen trade. Because the Sabres,
Taylor Hall looked pretty good with the Bruins.
He did look pretty good with the Bruins. You wonder how Sam Reinhart's going to look with the Panthers, and if Jack Eichel is ever able to escape Buffalo, yes, I'm sure he'll look great somewhere else too. So some of that has to do with Buffalo for sure. But it's been Carter Hutton. Is not a guy that if he had I know he did it when Pekka had his hip problem several years ago, but he was much younger then. Carter is not a player that I would, if UC got hurt for a month, that I would feel really comfortable having in net for a month.
Right.
So you need to find a goalie like Mrazek, Bernier, Holtby, Ranta, who has extensive starting experience that can be that 1B.
Adam Vingan from The Athletic has been our guest for this hour here on Robby and Rexrode. Adam, appreciate you, brother. Great stuff as always.
My pleasure. Is Joe back?
I don't know.
I guess I should stay here until Joe comes back, right?
We can try that. You want to stay? You're welcome to stay anytime you want to stay.
All right, I'm going to stay here until Joe comes back.
We can do that. Corey Curtis from News 2 joining us up next. We'll get into Titans training camp and a whole lot more with Corey as well. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley. Adam Vingan is in for Joe Rexrode as Joe is off getting his COVID test as Titans training camp set to get underway this week, fulfilling his media obligations on that front. Michelle Knezovic here with you as well on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's an hour later than normal today due to some scheduling that we had to move around, but we are pleased to go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Corey, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I have just pulled in to Lake Nashville, and I'm awaiting to go get my nose swabbed for the first time. I've never had a COVID test.
Really?
It's exciting.
Well, I can't promise you that it's going to be a very pleasant experience, but at least it'll be quick.
Well, I don't know if it's the nasal swab or the brain tickle. I'm going to find that out.
Okay, all right. Well, either one probably not great, but the brain tickle is something else, let me tell you.
Yeah, I don't want the brain tickle, but, you do what you have.
That's right. So, Corey, with that in mind, obviously, as you mentioned, Titans training camp getting underway this week. What excites you the most about training camp coming this week? What are you most looking forward to for the Titans when training camp gets fired up here in a couple of days?
Well, I need to see those young DBs, and are they ready to compete? I don't know when I'm going to see Caleb Farley on the field, but I need to see him on the field. And I want to see him, and I want to see Christian Fulton in year 2, and Amani Hooker as he makes the next step up, and then Elijah Molden, kind of that wild card that everybody's looking at. I feel good about Jack Rabbit Jenkins, especially from what I saw in OTAs and minicamp. But I need to see these guys, and I need to see them compete against the Titans' best. And that doesn't mean I need to see them win all the time, but I want to see the streak that they've got in them, because the great DBs have that moxie to them, and they have that confidence, and they're able to shake it off. And I need to see that from these guys.
Corey, with that in mind, we were talking earlier in the show. Obviously, Farley you brought up, but Bud Dupree as well, coming off of an injury. Now he's put some videos out on Instagram where he looks pretty good, but there's a difference between working out and being on the football field and doing football moves in live action. How cautious would you be if you're Mike Vrabel and the Titans with Bud Dupree during training camp and during the preseason as well?
Well, I think they've got to be cautious because the injury happened so late in the season. And Mike Vrabel, one of the things that I have learned about him is he is much more concerned about having his players ready for January than he is for September. Because when you get to that point of the season, that's when you got to have your best players at their best to win big games. So I don't think they are going to rush him. And you're right, there's a big difference between moving straight in a straight line, pushing things or sprinting, than moving laterally. Because that's where the knee can really buckle, and that's where they've got to make sure it's strong. So, I think putting him on the PUP list is the right move, and that's without knowing how any of his physicals or anything have gone. And they don't need to rush him, and he's a veteran. He's not a rookie. So, he doesn't have to play a lot to be ready. So that's my way of saying I have no idea of when he's going to play, but I am confident he will play once it's time to come off the PUP list.
Corey Curtis from News 2 on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Corey, I am just kind of anticipating that at some point during training camp, another move is made and the Titans bring in a tight end. Not necessarily a number one tight end, but to add a veteran to that group. But let's just say for a second, you've got Miller Forrestall there. You've got Briley Moore there. You've got, a lot of different options that are younger there as well. Jared Pinkney from Vanderbilt as well on that list.
Hudson.
Well, yeah, Tommy Hudson as well. What would you need to see from those guys in the preseason? Is there anything that you could see from those guys in the preseason that makes you feel comfortable about the tight end depth? Or if you're John Robinson, the Titans, are you looking for a veteran no matter what at this point?
I want to see somebody who's got a rock in his head and can bury people. That's what I want to see, because that's not what Anthony Perkser is. And I like Anthony Perkser, and I think he can catch 40, 50, even 60 passes for this team if that's what the job calls for. But this team's bread and butter has been running the football, and Michael Pruitt was a huge part of that. Go ahead and look at some of Derrick Henry's longest runs, and you'll see number 85 in the frames, helping create a lot of those holes. And I know Jeff Swaim can block, but they need another guy who can really get in the scrum and knock some people around. So I think I need to see that more than I need to see them even catching passes, because every time you throw it to a Tommy Hudson or a Jared Pinkney, you're not throwing it to A.J. Brown or Anthony Firkser or to Julio Jones. And so I don't know that they have to have guys they throw a lot of passes to. I also think Darrington Evans is going to be a bigger part of the passing game this year, and he's a 4-3 guy. And so that's another guy I'd rather have the ball in his hands than a third or fourth tight end. So, look, do they need another veteran tight end? Probably, but they're coming off the boards. I mean, Jesse James just signed with the Bears.
Yep.
So I don't know who else is out there. I'm stunned to see Zach Ertz is still an Eagle.
Yeah, me too. I thought that would have been resolved itself by now. Corey, switching gears, last thing for you here because I know you got to go run and get tested. What are your thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma potentially joining the SEC? Is this a good thing for college football? Is it a bad thing? What are your thoughts on this whole ordeal with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 and potentially joining the SEC?
You think they regret missing out on the last go-round?
I think so.
Because I do. I think they went, man, we really kind of blew it. I mean, because, look, the Big 12 is a zombie league. It's a dying league. It's an inferior league. They struggle to get into the playoff because the league isn't very good. Their numbers aren't very good, and they got to bring in West Virginia to try to get their numbers up. And so whether it's good or bad, I guess, is a personal take. My whole thing is it was inevitable. Not that they were going to go to the SEC, but they were going to go to the Pac-12, the Big Ten, or the SEC. They were going to go to one of those three leagues, okay? Because we are headed for 4 leagues of 16 teams, and you're going to have 64 teams, and they're going to have their own playoff, and in my opinion, they're going to pay their players because those schools will be able to afford to pay their players where the other ones won't. They'll have their own set of rules that they'll go by. Yes, they'll still play the other schools in non-conference games, but it's just going to be like having FBS and FCS. You're going to have the paid tier, and you're going to have the NIL tier, all right? And then you'll have the FCS tier. So you're just kind of adding another tier. So I think that this was inevitable, and in the next 5 to 10 years, I don't think it'll take that long. I think this stuff all picks up steam. You're going to have 4 super conferences, and they'll develop their own playoff format, and they won't have to share the money, and they won't have to worry about the likes of Central Florida, and those schools, trying to get in because they'll have their own party.
Corey Curtis from News 2 has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check him out every Monday here on the show. Corey, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. All
right. Hey, thanks, Robby. I enjoyed listening to you guys on the way in, and I agree with you on the Predators. And I think that one point I wanted to make on that, and I know you got to go, so I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Is like you talked about, being okay. I know a lot of people got really upset about Kelly Yarncroc going, and I get it. I do, because Kelly Yarncroc was a good player for this team. But did he ever score 20 goals in a season?
No.
It's 16 is where he topped out, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I realize not everybody can score 30 goals for you. But you look at it and you say, we've seen the best of Kelly Yarncroc, okay? And I don't know if Tanner Jeannot is ever going to score 16 goals in a year, but if you think he can be a 20 to 25 goal scorer, or Yakov Trenin could be a 20 to 25 goal scorer, that's better. And it's about being better than you are. And I think that's one of the things, and I think you talked about taking a step back, take a step forward, and I think that's kind of where they are in realizing that this is okay, but it's not good enough. We got to find things that are good enough. And that's hard to do, but they've got to find a way to do it.
Exactly, because the worst place you want to be is right in the middle, and quite frankly, that's about where they are at this point.
You look at all the teams that win the Cup, what do they all have in common just about? They all really stunk, and they all picked first.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Corey Curtis, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Robby. You have a great day. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You as well. Corey Curtis does a great job in News 2, joins us every week here on the show, usually at 8 o'clock today, at 9 o'clock with some scheduling things that had to get moved around. So thanks to Corey for doing that. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Tennessee Titans. Look ahead to the roster. What are the biggest question marks heading into training camp? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Tune in to Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9. Tomorrow, the Sounds begin a 6-game homestand at First Horizon Park against Columbus, the AAA affiliate of the Cleveland Indians. Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by 312 Pizza Company and Farm Bureau Health Plans. The Indians last year, the Indians becoming the Cleveland Guardians next year, as we found out last Friday. So next year, they'll be the AAA affiliate, I would assume, of the Cleveland Guardians at that point.
That's right.
Welcome back, Joe.
Thanks.
Joe Rexrode is back in the house, ladies and gentlemen, after going to the Titans facility. Training camp coming up a little later this week, and receiving, I guess, the COVID test that you'll have to do, every 2 weeks? As a member of the media?
I believe that's right. All went well. TD was right in front of me.
Yeah.
Luke Worsham and Steve Lamon right behind me. Jared Stillman was just loitering around the premises for no reason that I can determine. No, I assume Jared got tested too. But yeah, all went well. It wasn't a deep brain plunge, so
that's good.
That was good. Yeah, guys sounded good. Some good Preds talk. I do have to jump right on Corey Curtis.
Okay.
On something he said.
All right, go ahead.
Although I want to wait till he's done so he can hear me shaming him in the car. No, so Corey had an interesting take there on, and I agree with a lot of what he said about. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's good for the sport. Also, Texas and Oklahoma, we're going to go somewhere at some point. So if you're the one who won, as Greg Sankey is, then you deserve credit for doing that. But Corey's, see, the more I think about it, the less I'm convinced in this four separate teams that only play each other idea. It could happen. But one thing I definitely disagree with on Corey is, like, there's not going to be some tier where or the schools are now paying the players so they have all this money. Again, Title IX is a federal law. It is, so these are still universities. These are still public universities with presidents, chancellors. You can kill the NCAA. You can call it something else. I mean, they're going to have a member organization, but they're not going to be exempt from federal law. And so you're not going to pay football players, because then you're going to pay all your athletes the same, men and women. And also, these are still non-profit entities in terms of the way the government looks, which is why they have as many opportunities as they do. It's why there's a minimum sport requirement of 16. And this is an NCAA rule, but again, whether the NCAA is taken away, there's going to be a member organization that has rules, I promise you. And so that can't happen. Plus, I mean, so you're going to say a name, image, likeness tier? Like Bryce Young on the name, image, likeness tier is at $1 million right now. You're going to pay more than that? Like, the schools aren't paying. That's not happening. And if it does, then it is purely like minor league sports, and it blows everything up. But regardless of that, everything else could happen. The super team could happen. The four super team or super
conference
leagues only playing each other, in some ways, hey, it'd be competitive games. It'd be more competitive games for fans who have to pay all this money to watch. On the other hand, again, all these programs at the lower levels who are funded by being able to play these teams, I mean, I guess they just cut football.
I mean, I would guess that, or dramatically reduce football, one of the two. I don't know what you do at that point. Like, I think you're reaching a point in this discussion where that's a real consideration. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week. Like, if you move to a 9-game conference schedule, or there's talk about 10 games. So let's do a 10-game conference schedule.
And every single coach, when you say that, just shudders.
Oh, I know.
But
I think it's at least on the table at some point.
I think 9's definitely.
Yeah, I think 9's
real.
A certainty. And, 10, I think will be on the table at some point. And also factoring in the college football playoff. Like, if you're going to go to 12 teams, are you adjusting your regular season schedule? If you're still going to have a conference championship game and you've got potentially 3 playoff games you'd have to play at that point to get to a national title, do you reassess the way you handle the schedule at that point? Or do you want these college kids playing 16, 17, 18 games? I mean, that's what you're going to have to think about if you're college football at this point. So, like, you could get to the place where a lot of these non-conference games that admittedly in November, the week before, as you pointed out, rivalry weekend, quote unquote, in the SEC, some of these non-conference games are awful and they're a waste of time. But they also are very important to these lower-tiered college football teams for the future of their program and being able to have a football program. If that goes away, are they just going to stop playing college football? Like, what in the world happens to those programs at that point?
And then you have way less opportunity out there. And you may have way less, you may have less participation, which already is a concern in some parts of the country with football. May have less interest. You may hurt the sport at large. So there's one way that you could. It's not going to deter the people who are making millions from doing things, basically acting like, ruthless corporate CEOs fighting each other for Texas and Oklahoma. That's what happened here, right? I mean, Greg Sankey outmaneuvered Bob Bowlesby and Kevin Warren, and completely duped them. Like this idea of like collegiality with people in the sport. I mean, he just cut their heads off, right? I mean, publicly. We've seen it. But you know what? The people in those positions, that's what their job is. Greg Sankey is there to make money for the SEC. Jim Delaney, who did a lot of this stuff too, was out there proactively, out there getting Nebraska and Rutgers, whatever you think about that. I mean, he made himself a ton of money. He made the Big Ten a ton of money.
Well, and now it's been made official. This coming from Brett McMurphy, a statement put out jointly by Oklahoma and Texas just a minute ago. Quote, the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas at Austin notified the Big 12 Athletic Conference today that they will not be renewing their grant of media rights following expiration in 2025. Providing notice to the Big 12 at this point is important in advance of the expiration of the conference's current media rights agreement. The universities intend to honor their existing grant of rights agreements. However, both universities will continue to monitor the rapidly evolving collegiate athletics landscape as they consider how to best position their athletic programs for the future. So that's
a good sentence.
Yeah, that's code word for we are theoretically planning on living out the rest of this contract through 2025. However, if an opportunity comes up for us to get out sooner, we'll get out sooner.
Yes.
How much is it? That's code word for what that is.
How much is it? Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's not make this any more awkward than it needs to be. Or it could mean we're going to keep looking, and who knows? It may not be the SEC. Maction? How about a little Texas-Oklahoma Maction on Tuesday night? I mean, I'm just saying.
Could be.
They should explore their options. Is the Big Ten, is Kevin Warren DMing, Texas and Oklahoma right now? Big Ten went after Texas before. They wanted Texas and Notre Dame to fill it out for them. That would have been pretty strong. Yeah. Is Kevin Warren sending out feelers like, hey guys, let's what about Oklahoma, Ohio State? What about Texas, Michigan?
Maybe. I mean, if
worth a shot, man.
It's worth a shot at this point. I mean, it kind of feels like they'll.
Oh, it's over.
It's over with the Big 12, but it kind of feels like if you're Texas and Oklahoma at this point, what'd you say the buyout would be? Like $76 million, somewhere around there?
Yeah, and that's I want to say that's Heather Dinich or Rittenberg from ESPN had that first, I believe. I want to give the proper credit. It was ESPN, but yeah, $76 million a piece. Staples for us for the Athletic. He figured it'd be around $80 million.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
It is, but again,
you can make that up pretty quickly.
If things are going where they think they're going, then that's a little more than a year once things are full throttle here.
Right.
So great, a lot of money. I mean, it's it's totally understandable. It's how things have been set up. It's exactly what Greg Sankey's supposed to be doing in his job. Although I really, really would love to just hear some Bob Bowlesby frank reaction to Greg Sankey when he found this out. Did he send him the most F-bomb laden text ever? I mean, they appeared together, and Bowlesby was praising him, and they're like, we're buddies, and the 12-team playoff, and then Bowlesby's at his media day asked about expansion. I'd like to know who asked about expansion, if that was just a random question or if there was some inkling of indication in the question. But of course he's like, I don't even think about that.
Well,
meanwhile, it had been months that Texas and Oklahoma had been apparently brokering this.
Friend of the show, Nicole Auerbach on Twitter. It's so hard to imagine Oklahoma and Texas staying in the league / playing through 2025. How do you do that? By the way, we'll have Nicole on the show coming up tomorrow. There's no way they remain part of the Big 12 through 2025, right?
No.
I cannot foresee that happening.
No, absolutely not. I would be shocked. I really would. Now, it's probably somewhere in between. What in between? I mean, to me, like right now, without knowing all the mechanisms here and all the different, possibilities, I would guess like this is their farewell tour in 2021. That'd be my guess. Everybody wants to move on. I guess the Big 12's like, actually, we'd like to keep making a bunch of money that they help us bring in as long as we can before we go on to our respective, either us remaining, as Corey called it, a zombie league that adds some AAC schools, or they just break up and float around and try to find homes.
I can't wait until like the first bad call that goes against Texas or Oklahoma in Big 12 play this year, and the fan base is going to be, you Bowlesby! Oh my goodness! You want us out?
Oh, no doubt.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and of course, every other fan base in the Big 12 has been saying forever how they get all the calls,
Texas and Oklahoma.
whether they do or not. Yeah. But yeah, that'd be great. Well, remember what was it? What was it? Texas, Kansas. Was that the game when Mangino was still there?
I think so. Yeah.
And there were some real questionable calls, and he went off about the Big 12. But yeah, there's always a conspiracy. Tennessee fans know this well.
Yes, they do. Christopher on Periscope says, "Morning, fellas. The triplets say hi. Call me crazy, but did Adam Vingan turn into Joe Rexrode? You did kind of morph there for a minute.
Oh,
on the camera.
Let's say, did Vingan put on 60 pounds?
I don't know. Didn't look like it.
So Vingan sat here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. He didn't try to fake tweet for me. I don't see any like.
No, your laptop remained closed the whole time.
That's good.
There you go.
That was some good. Preds talk. Really interesting, and I totally agree with both you guys. Like the more I think about it, let's see what the young players can do for a while. It may not go well, and then it's more of a rebuild than a competitive rebuild. But
at least you know
it's worth the real look here, right? Rather than. Yeah, James Neal. James Neal is like he's like the Delaney Walker of the Preds. Bring back James Neal. No James Neal, no Delaney Walker.
Although I would
had great times with both.
I would say there's more of a chance that James Neal ends up back here than Delaney Walker.
What percentage chance would you give it that James Neal ends up back here?
If he gets bought out, 15.
15?
Yeah, I think he could sign a 1-year, $1 million deal.
All right, I say it's a 0.7% chance.
Oh. I go 50. I'm operating under the assumption
14.3% more than me.
I'm operating under the assumption that he's bought out. If he's not bought out, there's a 0% chance.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. He's bought out. 0.3.
Okay, there you go.
No, 0.7.
0.7.
15 for you. All right.
We'll continue the conversation when we come back, reacting to the breaking news, Texas and Oklahoma making it official. They are out of the Big 12. We'll react to that coming up next. Get back into the Titans as well, and take your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. You can roll. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, reacting to the breaking news. Texas and Oklahoma have made it official. They have notified the Big 12 that they are leaving. They are not going to be renewing their grant of media rights contract following the expiration of that deal in 2025. And the speculation is they are intent on joining the SEC. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Chris in Nashville texting in, how would the SEC line up? Would you reshuffle or add one on each side? How do you think they go about doing this?
Well, first of all, before any of this happened, I was for getting rid of divisions. I don't think any of these leagues need divisions. I mean, I think you go with your top two in your title game, and you protect certain games. Go with your top two, and I understand that can make it more complicated to get to a top two, but it also eliminates the Northwestern won the Big Ten West because the whole Big Ten West sucks this year, and they get to play Ohio State. You get Ohio State, Penn State, or whatever. You get the better championship game, and I think you would have to go with the subjectivity probably of the CFP ranking, but okay. I mean, that's still based on data. So, first of all, I think that happens. And I think the pod thing makes sense. I think the pod, which is essentially four-team pods, those pods play each other, and then there's one more protected game for some at least. Then it gets into, are you playing 9, you're playing 10? Let's think about the Vanderbilt perspective on this for a little bit. If you get into this, and I like Vanderbilt, to me, there is opportunity with this situation, especially when you look at it relative to schools that you often recruit against, which is there are those great athletes and football players who can play at this level who are also elite students who value that and want to go to an elite institution. So down the road, if your school can offer more than a Stanford and a Wake and a Northwest, does that help you? But also, if you're Vanderbilt, you don't want 10 SEC games.
Probably not.
Even 9 means, okay, so you got to find 3. I mean, look, assuming Vanderbilt football is going to be roughly around the same range as Vanderbilt football has been for most of the last century. At this point, Vanderbilt football could use the 4 non-league games. And they actually are still scheduling pretty well right now relative to that. But, yeah, the 4-team pods, and so that would be, I guess, the most popular one I've seen is, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. I've seen the Alabama Auburn,
Tennessee, Vandy.
Then that way you protect Tennessee, Alabama, which Tennessee fans, I'm sure, are like, can we just protect Tennessee, Florida, and not Tennessee, Alabama? I don't know. Maybe Tennessee fans aren't saying that.
What do you think of the Georgia, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Kentucky pod? I'm sure Georgia would love it.
Yeah, Georgia's like, thank you. There's 3 dubs. That's the thing. Like, if you had that pod, then I'm assuming you are still protecting Georgia, Florida.
Right.
Like you have another protected game outside your pod. Has to be, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, if that's the pod, which Tennessee game would be protected?
It's a good question. I don't know.
What? Like the Florida-Tennessee
I guess
game. Florida-Tennessee game has been fantastic going back to the early 90s. Right? So we're talking 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's still Florida's has dominated, but it's been a great series. There's been some huge matches. That used to be as much of a game I looked forward to in non-league college football as any.
Tennessee, Alabama,
in the height of the Spurrier-Fulmer era,
right.
It was strong.
Tennessee, Alabama, to me, is still it.
That's a longer-running, bigger rivalry, right?
It is. Now, I know a lot of Tennessee fans listening right now would be like, Robby, shut up. Just let the Tennessee-Alabama game go until Saban retires. Man, maybe not the worst idea. But to me, like those 2 games, as a Tennessee fan, those are the 2 games you look forward to the most every year, even if you know what the result's going to be. Like, I know that Tennessee's going to get killed by Alabama. I know probably it's going to get destroyed by Florida, too. Those are still the 2 most important games of the year to me.
Well, and remember, 2 years ago, Tennessee almost pulled it off, and you don't know what's going to happen. Right. You don't know who's going to get hurt. You don't know the circumstances. They could have won.
In Alabama.
And Butch almost won also, by the way, in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
In what? Was that 15?
That was 15. Then Derrick Henry came on.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not an absolute 0% chance. But again, here's an example of Tennessee fans, and you can go around to different fan bases, having to think about these choices. That why does this have to be a thing?
Right.
So everybody can get more money. Okay.
But the most popular, and I agree, pods are probably the most likely solution if Texas and Oklahoma come in. But the most popular pod that I've seen does not have Texas and Texas A&M in the same pod.
Yeah, it's stupid.
It's got Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, and one of the Mississippi schools. I'm like, okay.
Okay. Then if whoever devise that one is thinking protect another game outside the pod, right? So they're protecting the Egg Bowl.
Yeah.
You got to protect the Egg Bowl.
Yeah, they're going to be. Yeah.
So
they'll be playing
as long as Texas and Texas A&M play. I mean, imagine the stupidity of this happening and then they don't play every year. I mean, I want that.
Oh yeah.
I'm front row in front of my TV for that game. Okay.
So if Vandy and Tennessee are in the same pod, who is the other one for Vandy?
Well, that's a great question.
And they've got the crossover with Ole Miss every year. Do you keep that? I don't think so. Is it Vandy, Kentucky? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be one of these SEC East programs.
Vandy, Kentucky.
Missouri, or yeah, exactly. The Kentucky alum says Vandy, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Hopefully a nice win for Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, you don't have. There are some teams where it's like there's no obvious protection. Why even do it? You know.
Well, and to Chris's point on the text line, if you were going to keep it the same and just add these two to the divisions, like you've got to realign the divisions. You can't have Texas coming in playing in the SEC East. Like Missouri being in the SEC East is already stupid because they're like the westernmost team in the SEC. Just you'd have to realign the divisions at that point. And what that would probably mean is one of, if not both, of Alabama and Auburn coming over to the East. Would be my guess.
Yeah, see, to me, that's like all this trouble for something that just go away.
I'm with you. I don't like the divisions either. But if you're going to keep it that way, there's no way you could just say, yeah, one of Texas and Oklahoma's coming to the East. Doesn't make any sense.
But you're just saying because of geography.
Yeah.
But I mean, geography is already.
I know, but it's like at some point it's got to count for something, right?
This sport has failed the geography bee mightily.
Well. Not going well.
So, but I think the pod thing makes sense, and 9 games is probably what it will be. But then again, we haven't heard from Saban. You know, Saban will weigh in, and sometimes he gets what he wants. Sometimes he doesn't, and then he just decides to bludgeon you with what you made him do. But maybe he's got some thoughts on that. He was not at all for 9.
No.
But this is different.
This is a little bit different. And hey, the rumor has it he almost left for Texas a few years ago. Maybe just to get a raise out of Alabama, but he was at least talking to him. So now he gets to play in the same conference as Texas.
Yeah, he already beats on LSU for the most part, unless they have Joe Burrow.
That is true.
It's just weird. It's just again as time goes on, and now that it's just reality and it's happening, I get it. I understand what Sankey did a great job. I mean, Sankey was ruthless and conniving, and that's a lot of times what people have to be at that level of income. But my gosh, I just don't see how anybody's excited. SEC fans or Oklahoma and Texas fans, are they excited? Are they excited to be in the SEC?
Probably not. Your road just got a whole lot harder if you're Texas and Oklahoma.
Because, I mean, if you're them, it's like, ooh, the 12-team playoff. Now, obviously, Oklahoma's gotten in plenty, too. But, like, even Texas with some of their mediocre teams.
Look, I'm here to tell you, Oklahoma's road is going to get really difficult. This planning basically a trip to the college football playoff every other year, that's going to come to an end coming to the SEC.
Right, like if you're an Oklahoma Sooners fan, you have to assume you will go less often now.
Yeah.
Even
if it's 12. That's what it is. That's what this league is. It's going to be very difficult to get to that point. Randy texting in on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I'm not understanding when you play 3 pod games, 4 non-conference games, that's 7, 1 protected game, that's 8. Do you play another pod and rotate like the NFL with different divisions? Yes, they would rotate different opponents at that point too. And I don't think there would be 4 non-conference games either. So you would have your 3 games against the other 3 teams in your pod.
Right.
You would rotate games between the other pod. I think the model the SEC network threw out there which is still amazing that they were talking about this
Immediately.
on the SEC Network immediately.
Get excited, everybody.
Had you basically hosting each team in the SEC once every 4 years. So right now, like, I think at this point, is it Georgia that still hasn't been to Texas A&M?
Yes.
Like, you can go 8-9 years without ever going somewhere.
Yeah.
That would not happen under this new proposal.
Because
you would rotate teams.
Because divisions can be very restrictive in that way.
Right.
So, so if it goes to 9, then you're talking 3 against your pod, 3 non-league, and then you have 6 more games. So
right. So it would be against a mixture of the other pods.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be like we play this pod this year, we play that pod. Yeah, it's
right.
more than that. So it'd probably just try to spread it around to be as equitable and everybody plays everybody as often as possible.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the breaking news out of the Big 12. Oklahoma and Texas has informed the Big 12 that they will be leaving. They are not coming back after their deal expires in 2025. We'll get to that coming up next. Look ahead to Titans training camp as well. All that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe, we've had the Olympics on all morning long here on the studio. And we've seen everything from fencing to water polo, now handball on television as well. Handball might be my favorite just random Olympic sport. I think it's awesome.
It's pretty intense.
Water polo's up there too. But handball, it's pretty intense. Right now, Denmark and Egypt locked up in an intense battle. It's like in the Olympics.
It's like lacrosse, with no sticks, kind of.
Pretty much.
But you have to fire from farther away.
Yeah. I don't even know how to explain the rules. It's just cool.
Oh. Yeah. I think. See, that's another. I watch that sport, and I'm like, I feel like I could be all right at that.
I feel like I could be pretty good at handball. We played a lot of handball at the Hendersonville High School physical education class back in 2010.
Did you?
Yeah. I don't know how we got stuck on that sport, but that's what we did.
Never played it before.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It kind of looks like like if you're good at dodgeball, you might be good
That's
at
pretty
handball.
much what it is. Yeah.
You know, a little bit smaller ball, but you can elevate and just fire the ball. You know.
So, what's your favorite random Olympic sport? Is water polo near the top of the list? We had a lot of love for water polo earlier today on the text line.
Like water polo, like there were high school water polo teams, like especially back in Michigan where we used to live.
Yeah.
There were some people who were pretty serious about it. But if you're talking random, I think what Michelle we were talking about Friday, the dressage.
Oh yeah.
Of equestrian.
Yeah.
Or like
it's just, that is random.
The trampoline, like not gymnastics, but the trampoline.
That's a good call.
Oh yeah.
Or I mean, table tennis. Like they're just.
The trampoline is cool. Like obviously a lot of elevation. I mean, it's fun to watch. You know, and it's like
synchronized diving got to be at the top.
Synchronized diving is very impressive, not entertaining, but impressive. You know.
I would say it's entertaining for about a minute and 30 seconds, and you're like, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
It's like
they're
it's
diving
like,
together.
Wow, that's amazing that you can do that. How did you even start doing that? I'm going to go watch something else.
Yeah, that's pretty much how that goes.
You wonder how they got involved in these sports.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they're so specific, or like fencing or karate or
Wow, and the
ping pong, table tennis.
Well, see, but table tennis is something a lot of people do, right? Randomly. So that's like, okay, that's a recreational game.
Sure.
But yeah, some of them it's like.
You ever tried any synchronized diving?
Yeah, I mean, how did you get to the point where you were serious about this? But obviously, the Olympics exist. That's why they exist, right?
Yeah.
Because every 4 years you can be an Olympic athlete.
Well, it just kind of feels like, you used to sit around the house, and maybe kids today don't know what this is like because there are so many different opportunities and entertainment forms that they have. But like, just sit around, like we used to just make up sports. Like we used to play basketball at times with a baseball. We played a game growing up where we would play football with baseball gloves, and you just throw a baseball around like you're playing football. Like it's stupid, probably dangerous, but like it feels like that's what some of these sports are. Is like somebody was just sitting around making up a sport one day and let's put it in the Olympics. Why not?
We have this random type of ball, and we have these nets, and yeah. It's then again. Some dude named Naismith's like, hey, let's take some peach baskets and try to throw a ball into them.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Why not?
People are like, what the hell is this? And now we're obsessed with it. So that's how it starts. Some have caught on a little better than others.
I'm often fascinated by like the first people to do certain things in life. Like there are a lot of different situations. Like, who's the first person that looked at a cow and was like, milk. Why not? Let's start drinking some of that. There's random things I wonder about sometimes. The ideas of being the first person to do something.
Fire.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good idea.
Let's touch that.
Milking animals. Pickleball is a new.
Oh yeah.
So
it's intense.
They have leagues around here. You can join pickleball leagues.
Oh yeah.
My cousin claims to be nationally ranked in pickleball. I haven't verified this. He lives in like Colorado. But
Really?
Apparently he's so he travels around to play pickleball.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Willie Donick got hurt playing pickleball, right?
Had some injuries playing pickleball. Chris Mason as well. Pretty intense pickleball players.
Chris Mason got hurt as well?
He did not get hurt.
Okay.
He does play.
He's durable.
Yeah.
C-Mace is durable, man.
Yeah. Willie,
Ultimate Frisbee is really big too.
Yeah. Yeah. That now we get into like the stoner sports like hacky sack,
Frisbee golf.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Also good.
Yeah.
Building bongs, whatever. There's a lot of things you can
Titans training camp getting underway this week. The players officially reporting tomorrow. Joe Rexrode, what are you looking forward to the most with Titans training camp coming up this week?
just seeing football between ones versus ones. One of the earliest things you'll see is some of the receiver DB matchups. Always fun. I will say
It's a little bit more fun this year.
I'm gonna miss Malcolm Butler.
Yeah.
Because during camp, regardless of how he may have played in a given Sunday, during camp, and he kept the energy up, and like Malcolm Butler and A.J. Brown battles and like little red zone receiver corner. Oh, good stuff.
You'll see it week one.
That's right. You will see that. That's gonna be. That is gonna be fun. That's an underrated part of that opener. But just seeing, and obviously, how some of these guys look, I think they're going to take it very slow with Dupree based on his timeline. Farley's just harder to know. I mean, listen to him on draft night. He expected to be rocking from the start of camp.
Yeah, which is not going to happen.
Which is not going to happen if he's on the NFI, but how long? I mean, maybe it's not a long period of time. Maybe he's close. That's a big question. I think Dupree is kind of obvious. We know what an ACL is. He's a big guy. There's a timeline, and it makes sense that he can come in, as Corey said, he can come in after being here, all the quote-unquote mental reps, knowing the system, being in the meetings. He can come out and play and be ready to go. Farley, a rookie with so much on him, and this defense needing so much help in defending the pass, it's different, and there's just no real known timeline for him.
Yeah.
That's obviously a big storyline. But Fulton is a big storyline for me.
Agreed.
How does he look out there? Is he ready to be a guy?
Well, what they do on defense this year, so much of that is he's critical to. Like, he has got to be ready to go. Whether that's outside, inside. I mean, he's played obviously outside in college, and before he was hurt last year, spent a lot of his reps inside in the slot. But his development this year is crucial. I mean, they obviously felt good about him. Adoree Jackson's gone. Malcolm Butler's gone. But if he's not up to snuff this year, that's a huge part of this. They're going to struggle if he's not ready to go.
Yep. I mean, I'm also really interested to see, of course, the receivers, what it looks like with all those guys out there together. But even, the battle at the back end of that room, Darrington Evans, on my little 53 today, I put Evans and Hill on the roster.
By the way, Joe Rexrode has put out a 53-man projected roster at theathletic.com. You can check it out at Joe Rexrode on Twitter.
Thank you. Thank you, Robby.
You're welcome.
There we go.
Boom.
This is a big day of athletic promotion.
It is.
Ving get in here for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Hill, I like that signing. I like the John Simons signing too. I'd be interested to see how he looks here early. They needed. You've had Wyatt Rant as our skipper. I mean, Roberson I still like to make the team, but they could have used another guy. Now they got another guy.
I am going to miss Tazar Skipper.
Good name.
Great name. All-name team. Going to miss him.
Yep. Hopefully he finds another home.
Hope so. We'll see what happens on that front. John Simon, an interesting signing. Obviously, some familiarity with Mike Vrabel at Ohio State as well. So Titans making some moves before training camp officially gets underway, and we'll have you covered all week long for training camp as well. Joe Rexrode will be out there. Titans training camp getting underway this week. The players reporting tomorrow for training camp, and then we're off and running with the NFL. NFL begins this week. It's exciting times.
And college football is trying to steal the headlines.
Those darn college football teams trying to steal those headlines with NFL training camp coming up. That does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Make sure you stay tuned for Darren, Donick, and Chase. They're coming up next. This is ESPN